Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 8th episode in which Naruto's childhood happens differently. After an incident, Naruto grows up as a guest of the Hyuga clan, but he is more interested in his clan's legacy and aspires to be Hokage. However, a certain fox always gets in his way. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. The Konoha Council convened several days after Hyuga Haruki's burial, and the 4 Jonin sensei who had reached the later stages of the exam were also invited. Nara Shikaku, the Jonin commander, and most of the other clan leaders were also present. The meeting was crucial because it centered on determining which genin should be recognized for their actions during the Chunin exams and the subsequent invasion. Due to his lack of trust in his counselors, the Hokage postponed the meeting so he could attend one-on-one. Sarutobi Hiruzen's physical state had been severely affected by the poisonous attack, but he was able to overcome it with the help of Tsunade and Naruto. Honestly, Hiruzen had to acknowledge that a more honorable death in combat would have been preferable, but his character was deeply flawed. He would carry out his responsibilities until he breathed his last. Being a shinobi was not an objective one. Their job was not about achieving glory and heroic acts, but rather about taking action from the shadows. Sarutobi pointed out that he never effectively communicated the nature of his profession to Jiraiya. In contrast to Hiruzen's practical mindset, Jiraiya had always been someone who dreamed. As he was led into the room, Jiraiya and Tsunade were present, and Hiruzen wondered if his mind played a role in saving him from collapse like Uzumaki. When the old Hokage found out about the meeting, which had already started, a deep frown washed over Hiruzen's tired face. The clan leaders, Mitokado Hamura, Shimurabi Danzo, and Utatane Koharu, were already engaged in a heated debate about the legitimacy of the examination. I had the impression that this was going to happen. I am not even close to death and they are already battling for control, which Tsunade wondered why I didn't tell them that I was dying. However, Danzo insisted that the exam had been halted, so any conclusions should not be drawn up. With a cough, Hiruzen made his entry known to his 3 former teammates. Hiruzen's departure from his own office meant that he was not seen by them, as they had seats facing away from the door. The elders were the most trusted members of the Hokage system, as they were able to trust each other without hesitation. When did we lose our unconditional trust in each other after Tobirama-sensei's death, and how long have we been together? Despite Hiruzen's efforts to suppress the laughter, 2 of the 3 individuals collapsed in their seats. Danzo's lack of energy was a factor, as he didn't really count. This saves me from having to initiate this meeting, even though I would have preferred it if everyone had waited until the very first moment. I'll take it, there's not much left to say. We have seen enough to decide if some high-profile genitalia should be promoted, Hiruzen whispered as he took his seat. The pause in this assessment did not result in any significant disadvantage for the genin. According to Aburame Shibi, who spoke on behalf of his clan, I concur, he declared. Every candidate had a shot at winning, except for the one who withdrew and his opponent. Despite the above, Tsunade sent 3 genin that exceeded the standards of ordinary Gaino. The fights of Yamanaka and Noichi should not be a source of embarrassment. TCH, you're in deep trouble because your daughter was missing, Shikaku chuckled to himself. In addition to the Hayatan bloodline, Kirigakure sent one of their 7 swordsmen's recent arrivals. The Inuzuka's elder noted that the puppies were exceedingly talented this time. It's surprising that a significant number of our children were barely noticeable during the carnage. Secondarily, Shikaku retorted, adding that there was only one incident. The boy's progress was remarkable, especially given that he had a handicap. The Kyubi brat has shown that he lacks the ability to walk freely in this village, as Danzo stated. He received a surprised look from Hiruzen for his comment, and Jiraiya was gestured to stand up before doing anything foolish. Danzo, I'm concerned that you let your prejudices take precedence over your own beliefs. Once more, Hiruzen sighed. Uzumaki Naruto acted as the opposite of losing control. Despite being incensed by Hyuga Niji's actions, he maintained control of the Kyuubi for a brief period. Despite being outmaneuvered by Tsunagekyu's Jinchuriki, Naruto remained unyielding. Naruto demonstrated that he could use the Kyuubi's chakra to defeat Ichibo, and not the other way around, in order to achieve victory. From my perspective, he demonstrated his worthiness and demonstrated that a promotion to Chunin would be commendable. Naruto's actions were unique among the previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, as they did not match those of their predecessors. Minato may have been involved in something that occurred before his untimely demise. Danzo was unable to object due to the majority of the clan's leaders being in agreement. He had no other option but to have the civilian representative as his witness, and the person could only manifest his fear of the demon. As a final move, Danzo turned to the Jonin sensei of Tibet. As we received a signal from Danzo, Koharu mentioned the presence of both re-entered and current sensei of the Uzumaki. Before voting on the boy, let them express their opinions. Hatake Kakashi? The Jonin replied, acknowledging all the council members by raising his head slightly. I have only been following Naruto for a few months, but I have observed his development, Kakashi said, appearing uninterested as usual. Uzumaki Naruto has been proven to be the most unexpected shinobi I have ever encountered, as demonstrated by his ability to succeed in the often unachievable test. Kakashi was uncertain about the identity of the individual who leaked the rumor, but doubted whether it spread faster than that one. His potential in skill and chakra capacity is probably much higher than mine, but his burdens are equally daunting. The way Uzumaki Naruto handles those duties was what impressed me the most. With a remarkable spirit, he never surrenders his hope. I know some people are scared of the demon, but if they give Naruto a chance, they will understand what happened. There was no doubt that the last statement sparked a lot of conversation. The fact that Kakashi was considered one of the most powerful Jonin of Konoha, and possibly even the strongest, is not surprising. Guy was never given the respect he deserved either, which always proved to be a challenge for people. If a man of this level praises someone, what would happen? Kurenai affirmed, I fully concur, before Koharu could make another statement. The Kyuubi's prejudice against Uzumaki Naruto has been more detrimental than the demon itself, as evidenced by my experience with them. Naruto has demonstrated multiple times his ability to achieve extraordinary things, but he has never shown that his powers can corrupt him. Some of the genitalia I witnessed during the exam were excessively self-assured and would willingly risk their lives to attain a power comparable to his, but only be corrupted by it. I have complete faith in Uzumaki Naruto, whom I am currently a student of. As a human, not just shinobi or Jinchuriki. In his fight against Sabaka no Gaara, Hamura inquired if there was any evidence of the Uzumaki child exhibiting such power. Did he ever lose control? The old counselors were unable to communicate with the Jonin, prompting Hiruzen to express his satisfaction that Naruto had used the demon's power effectively. It is highly likely that many more people would have died during the invasion, in my opinion. In the absence of Uzumaki Naruto's intervention, the unleashed Ichibi would have been turned against our village, said Shikaku. After examining the shinobi we apprehended from Hokage, we discovered most of Orochimaru's plan. In my opinion, the individual who uncovers the majority of information should be responsible for describing this plan, he indicated to Jiraiya. Orochimaru's plan had 3 components, Jiraiya explained when all eyes were on him. The snakes, who were enlisted by experts from Hokage, managed to flood the walls through holes that had been dug by the Tsunageker and Otoker's shinobi. Orochimaru's plan was to use the Kazekage to guide the unleashed Ichibi and cause chaos and destruction that would render our troops on the walls unsupported. His plan was to eliminate the Hokage, which would have caused chaos in Konoha's leadership and escalated the situation. Jiraiya neglected to mention the fact that Orochimaru's partner was supposed to capture Naruto, and it is possible that Gaara also had a role in this. For a while now, Jiraiya had been informed that his former colleague and teammate had joined the Akatsuki organization, which was described as unfortunate by allusions to Another group. However, according to his own assessment, Akakuki would come after the Jinchuriki was something he had not yet fully grasped. Hiruzen agreed that Akatsuki's details would remain classified as long as they had no further information on the matter, despite the lack of confirmation. Sasori's knowledge of this was limited to those who had seen and heard it firsthand, and they all received their gag order on the matter. Uzumaki Naruto's actions were instrumental in thwarting the second and third Orochimaru plot, as stated by Hiruzen, according to him. He exhibited remarkable strength and intelligence, risking his own life to rescue Konoha, and I believe Naruto should not be denied a promotion. Unless there is a technical reason for not including him in the promotion, which could result from his match against Gaara being outside the exam boundaries, I will have to give him supplementary status. With the overwhelming majority supporting Naruto's promotion, Danzo reacted with determination and anger. On the other hand, Jiraiya and Kurenai both smiled broadly, feeling proud that the boy finally got some recognition he deserved. Kakashi remained silently cheering his former student and his teacher's son. "It seems like I have to confront the demon in a different manner," Danzo said, leading to the audience's shift to another topic. We can move forward with the remaining candidates. Although the Uchiha family's last player performed strongly in both the first and preliminary rounds, they were unlucky to be drawn in the finals. "I was taken aback by his proficiency in the Chidori," Shikaku acknowledged. "Nevertheless, his tactical acumen is highly lagging behind and needs to be enhanced." Kakashi nodded and confirmed that the Uchiha had already encountered Haku. "As we were on a mission in the country of waves, we came across Haku and his sensei, Momochi Zabuza," he recounted to others. They had not yet taken up arms against the previous Mizukage, and as a result, they were still missing Nin, just like the current Mizumi. At that particular moment, Haku emerged victorious over Sasuke with relative ease. Despite knowing what he was facing, Shikaku still charged at him with a frown. A Chunin's mind is not the same as that of a Uchiha, and their mindset is less so. Typically, the shinobi of their clan were highly analytical individuals who took advantage of any available opportunity to use their Sharingan for learning and improvement. Considering the age of these children, I cannot assume they will excel as leaders, as their lack of experience may hinder their tactical understanding of their role or potential. Inoichi and his friend expressed confidence in the Uchiha's performance, stating that it was based on the concept of strength. He aimed to conquer a much faster adversary by means of that tactic. I have to admit, it was a bit disappointing to see him lose in that manner. I knew the boy had a lot of potential, especially after hearing all the stories. He neglected to mention that a significant portion of the stories were derived from his daughter, who was not entirely impartial in their treatment of Uchiha's final days. Although Hiruzen had no intention of divulging that Sasuke was holding the curse seal from Orochimaru, it was based on his belief that the young Uchiha should not be promoted. At least not yet. Sasuke had not been able to prove that he could possess such an evil power or use it wisely, unlike Naruto who had. Hiruzen came to the realization that he had already formed his mind about the Uchiha's intentions. "I cannot tolerate a promotion of Uchiha Sasuke," he stated, after some heads expressed their disapproval of the promotion. "What?" was asked by some. "What's the reason?" Many more individuals voiced their objections. Hiruzen sighed. The Uchiha Kekkai Genkai's strength is evident, but it does not necessarily mean that the boy is a good shinobi. Why can't they look beyond the blood? Uchiha Sasuke is the ultimate target of his career. Hiruzen terminated his last line of protesters in Konoha by stating that they were still present. "I will not permit him to be promoted. Konohagakure's best interests lie in ensuring that Uchiha Sasuke remains alive and mature enough to maintain his bloodline. If there is still uncertainty about Sasuke's mental and physical abilities, I cannot tolerate his promotion and allow him to take greater risks. It is not within Konoha's power to have all the Uchiha bloodline removed from its surviving members. The current situation requires Sasuke's promotion only if I am confident that he will not experience an unacceptably high death risk." The Sharingan's existence cannot be disregarded by Konoha. Why can't we just say, it's a risk? The elder in Inuzuka suggested gathering his genetic material as a backup plan. Despite his lack of emotion, Hayashi's frown was caused by his expression. Indescribable. What about artificial insemination? He asked. I wonder if you're aware of the dangers associated with Kekkai Genkai? Leave me some space, Aburame Shibi declared. The process is already intricate, but with the assistance of a skilled medical practitioner like Tsunade-sama, there are numerous hazards when dealing with Kekkai Genkais. The intricate nature of the chakras in genetic material is prone to disrupting, and this is the reason why they are so easily disregarded. The normal reproduction process involves a chance that the offspring will not have parental bloodline skills, but artificial means make the chances of success less likely. Hiruzen stated that it should be used only as a last resort. As of now, the worth of Uchiha blood is greater than the risks associated with promoting Sasuke. The question of whether he deserves the promotion is beyond my consideration. He was aware that many clans were sensitive to this topic and would always oppose any research aimed at increasing the success rate. This was not a concern for the Inuzuka. Blood did not play a role in the connection between the Inuzuka clan and their Ninken, so even though their abilities were influenced by genes like improved senses, they were the least affected by blood ties. The Inuzuka were also the most family-oriented individuals, which is ironic considering. Among all the clans, they had the least concerns about adoption. Contrast this with other forms of reproduction as well. The treatment of humans is similar to that of dogs, making it logical. The Uchiha clan's future should not be influenced by the use of such a treacherous pathway. The majority of people agreed with their Hokage, but Shimura Danzo was left feeling disappointed. According to his eyes, Naruto was the one who should have been kept under a tight leash, as the Kyuubi were incredibly dangerous and could have provided Konoha with valuable weapons. Nevertheless, he believed that it would be more prudent to eliminate the last Uchiha, which only endangered Konoha. The combination of their strength and dubious loyalty had always been a source of concern for Danzo. He was fully aware that he could not bring about the death of Uchiha Sasuke. Not in the territory of Konoha. Danzo thought that elucidating the cause of death on a hazardous mission would be more straightforward. Before leaving Konohagakure, Uchiha Itachi had made a threat to Danzo that he couldn't forget. It is impossible for any of the older ones to forget. Danzo was not prepared to take the risk of a confrontation with the notorious Uchiha. According to my understanding, there is still one more genin that needs to be addressed. The Nara boy's abilities were acknowledged by Hiruzen as deserving of promotion. Naruto's ability to break free from the wall that separated him from his comrades was due to his actions. The previous 2 rounds were a game-changer for Nara Shikamaru's team, as his intelligence and skill proved to be crucial in moving them through the stages. It is also of great significance that he was able to deceive and vanquish one of Kiri's contemporary swordsmen. Shikaku, unsure of his emotions, nodded in agreement at the suggestion and expressed surprise that his son had received such a recommendation from the Hokage. There was little doubt in his son's response to being promoted, as he would either find it difficult or latched onto the idea of taking another exam because of its benefits. The fact that 2 rookies passed the exam and earned their promotions was a rare occurrence. Even if one of them was a Jinchuriki, it was still not reasonable. Shikaku was filled with pride for his son, despite not being aware of his actions. Upon discovering that Shikamaru was doing well, it seemed like he would be more complacent than before, as Shikaku admitted guiltfully. Shikamaru inherited the same quality as him, and Yoshino consistently reminded him of it. While discussing his son's training needs, Shikaku expressed a smile of relief at the thought of troublesome women. There were few things that were more enjoyable than relaxing while others worked their asses off. Tsunade looked around as her green glowing hands moved to examine her former mate. You should have called a break, be logical, she insisted. If you continue to over-examine yourself like this, then Hiruzen sighed. Jiraiya was restricted to defending his sensei. The council was taken aback when they learned that he and Hiruzen had accepted the official apology from Tsunagakure, where Suna admitted that the Kazekage was under the authority of one of Orochimaru's aides. This was likely the most significant setback for a village. And in a public setting, on the front lines. It'd almost be the same as a Danzo who is blushing, but in this instance. Suna's attack on Konoha resulted in Kirigakure and Kumogakure becoming involved in the conflict. If Suna did not make a concerted effort to resolve issues, it could potentially engage in warfare with three countries simultaneously. Due to Iwagakure's reputation, Suna would need to be vigilant about their northern borders. Tsunagakure was left with no choice but to swallow its pride and sulk in shame. In addition to the concessions, Jiraiya secured Baki's agreement to keep the deceased Kazekage and his children as hostages to prevent Tsunagakure from betraying them. Jiraiya informed Baki that the ceiling on Gaara had been greatly enhanced, and Naruto was expected to assist in enhancing it, thus reducing the risk of Ichibi's rampages. Moreover, it was decided that the brothers would not be required to stay in their cells and instead relocate to a secure area in Konoha. As a precautionary measure, Jiraiya and Naruto agreed to serve as Gaara's guards until the new formal peace agreement, which included favorable trade terms for Konoha, was reached. As Jiraiya looked on, his eyes filled with joy as he remembered how Baki had been treated when the Sannin realized that Konoha would effectively provide Tsunagakure with supplicants who could potentially increase Suna's power by up to 100%. The Ichibi was considered unbeatable when they were able to exploit the vast deserts surrounding their village. Baki expressed gratitude to Jiraiya, stating that it would be easier to persuade the council in Suna to accept the agreement. The council of Konoha reluctantly agreed to the same outcome, as no one could challenge Jiraiya on this matter, and Naruto had proven himself capable of defeating Ichibi without assistance. The council's chaos was exacerbated by the second treaty they presented, as reported by Jiraiya, which almost caused a heart attack among some of the elder members. Even though Jiraiya tried to sell his Ika Ichaku series to Danzo, he did not see any of it often, leading to significant changes in the visually impaired person's perception. Given the prevailing view that Kirigakure had committed acts of treason, how could they have come to agree on a truce between them? Konoha's defense was aided by her and her details, which left a lasting impression and helped the proposition be successful. The trade interests were a close second in the competition. The act of remorse helped individuals move on from past wrongdoings. Tsunade's further disagreement about the old man deteriorating health caused Jiraiya to shiver. It was known to everyone that Hiruzen had been alive for at least a month before the poison would gain control and end his life. Tsunade, a blood-based antidote, was not effective in saving Naruto's life. Naruto was not vulnerable to most poisons due to the Kyuubi's influence, but he developed antibodies after being poisoned by Orochimaru, which allowed the poison to be broken down to a level that was acceptable for him. Despite Uzumaki Naruto's ability, it would not be enough to kill the majority of others. Jiraiya was enthralled by the implications and expressed her dismay at the thought of trying to drink Naruto's blood. It was widely accepted that Naruto would require a significant amount of alcohol to be incapacitated, but the boy's ability to resist poisons made him the least likely candidate. Jiraiya saved the thought for later use, perhaps by convincing Tsunade to join him in a drinking game. Considering the debts she had already collected, she wouldn't be bothered about paying more. Until then, Hiruzen's condition depended on Tsunade's ability to create an antidote for Orochimaru's poison. The near impossibility had been proven wrong. The poison was akin to the poison that was used against Naruto, but it had been less effective. Orochimaru purportedly retained this particular poison for special events. However, all three were aware that Hiruzen's age meant that his body would not survive even if Tsunade discovered a cure. The harm had already been inflicted. The only thing they could do was prevent the old man from suffering excessively. Fortunately, the Naruto-based partial antidote reduced Hiruzen's suffering and enabled him to carry out his duties in a certain way. Jiraiya was already concerned about the headaches and chaos that he predicted would hit Konoha once Hiruzen announced his resignation. Minato was the perfect successor last time out, but there wasn't a shinobi that stood out enough to succeed him this time. Jiraiya had planned to take Naruto away from Konoha for training, but he felt that his decision was premature. He decided to leave Konoha as soon as attainable because of his current emotions. It is likely that Danzo pursued the role of Hokage, particularly if he were to do so. If Naruto were to obtain that, it is likely that he would be prohibited from leaving Konoha. Jiraiya screamed at himself, saying, "I hear people say that they're bad politicians." It's possible that Tsunade is correct in his belief that only foolish individuals would want to deal with this unsatisfactory situation. Both Niji and Hizashi were confined to their own rooms in Hyuga compound, waiting for the elders of their clan to make a decision. They then waited for Hayashi to punish his brother for violating their laws, despite Hizashi's realization of the consequences. Niji's initial stay at the hospital lasted for several days. Although the open wounds on his chest had healed fairly well, the burns had left behind 4 disfigurable scars. Despite the doctor's best efforts to restore the skin and their promise to reduce scars, Niji knew that they would never completely disappear. The 4 scars on his forehead were not as painful as the pain they cause. Naruto's seal and the majority of his skin were likely destroyed by burning. Due to the inability to heal with traditional means, the doctors had to perform a transplant on the wounds and place new skin on his forehead. Niji had not yet witnessed the results of that procedure, as his head was always bandaged. The caretakers/guards' looks on him when he changed his bandages were enough for him, and Niji was aware that his body had suffered as much as his pride. Is it possible for me to oppose Naruto? He is not human, but I am not sure about his identity, Niji pondered, still trying to determine how he had lost someone. Despite the fact that no chakra storage seal could be used to open all of a person's tenketsu, it is possible for someone with non-Hyuga blood to reopen one. The ability to do so was only available to a select few members of his own family who had exceptional chakra control and noticeable strength. Unless his chakra is exceptionally strong, it cannot be. Could his powerful tenses have been capable of withstanding such pressure, and did this necessitate the release of so much energy to open them? Despite admitting, Niji still believed that it was unattainable without Naruto's power, crimson eyes, and seemingly infinite chakras. The eyes are what those were. As if my gaze was gazing into an infinitely deep, empty-nested portal of chakras. The eyes of the man had persistently been watching him in dreams after the exam, even though he was suffering from fevers and headaches. Pretendly evoking his anger and dissatisfaction. I owe my life and freedom to Hinata-sama. What was the purpose behind his statement and why did he consider it to be such a nonsensical statement? Naruto's involvement in the disappearances and murders of members of their clan was revealed to Niji through his revelation. The only rational explanation that Niji could make was that the individuals involved had been threatening Naruto. He acknowledged that Naruto would not engage in such behavior against someone who attempted to kill him. If Hinata was being pursued, Niji came to the realization that Naruto had become ruthless only after he protected others. Niji had observed the blonde's struggle with Lee. He had been informed that he had spared Gaara, even though the medics and guards were not privy to any information about the incident. When Naruto fought for someone else, Niji was granted mercy as Hinata had refused his request to spare him. Why would a member of the primary family display such self-deprecation? Nevertheless, Niji was aware. Hinata, who was born natural, did not resemble any of the primary family members. Could the assumption that Naruto had killed people due to other people's actions be accurate? The murder of Hinata prompted Niji to wonder what might have led to the deaths of those individuals, especially since most of them were from the same family. Some of them had even been granted high-ranking seats in their family. Hinata had to wonder why they were left behind after his death, as his father had always been complaining about the main family's lack of wealth, cursed the branch, and suffered from the abuse of the primary branch. According to Hisashi, the branch would receive more support if Niji had won against Hinata. Naruto's intervention led Hisashi to state that the blonde should also be defeated as he had played a role in winning the main house. The father explained to him that the main family's power was not as he had assumed it to be. The branch family's crimes were of great concern to the world, and it was imperative that they be brought to justice. Niji began to question the veracity of his father's words. Hinata had always been judged as being weak, in terms of her ability to do so, even though she was much stronger than her younger sister, and mentally strong. The Hyuga clan's successor was not a gentle or delicate individual. I was amazed by the kindness that came my way, he declared. Despite Niji's brutal beating, she still had the strength to forgive him. Was that a weakness? Niji didn't perceive it. It dawned on him at that moment. Based on his knowledge of her gentle nature, Niji suddenly projected how she would govern the clan. She would not tolerate the ongoing abuse of the branch if she could forgive someone who was willing to take her life. The main family's wealth and power were at risk of being lost if she prevented the practice, as many of their most powerful members wanted to lose this privilege before she could come of age. Furthermore, in the event that Naruto had been aware of something, he would not have continued to be passive, which would explain his involvement. Although Niji could not comprehend the reason, the blonde's unwavering loyalty to his cousin was beyond words for him. It was Niji's realization that it was a crazy idea. If it were legitimate, what would be the outcome? In what other way could a member of the primary family have motivated another person to attack her? What was the reason for the branch's assistance? The father was curious as to why he didn't tell me. The branch family's predicament is always a topic of discussion for him, he said. If I am correct, why didn't we stand up for Hinata-sama? Even my father was furious with me because he never took her life. Hisashi had been held captive in his room for days, within walking distance of his son. There was a lack of communication from his guards regarding the events outside, nor did they provide any information about Niji's condition. Seeing his son's wounds, Hisashi couldn't help but feel concerned. He reacted with sadness to the realization that his own brother had turned against him and that Hayashi had instructed for his imprisonment, as soon as he saw his brother. Due to the order, Hisashi has been held captive since the invasion. Nevertheless, the proposals had not been successful. Despite Niji's impressive fight, the demon boy was too strong to overcome. The boy was a monster, just like the majority of people had assumed. The demon child was defeated by Niji, despite his mastery of the hack Rokujian Sho with 64 palms. Without anyone to guide him, Hisashi couldn't feel proud of his son who had achieved such feats. Despite witnessing his brother practicing the technique multiple times and watching their father training Hayashi, Hisashi still had not yet achieved mastery in the same way. Despite the fact that he had passed on incomplete information, Niji managed to make it happen. The system was proven wrong about the power of blood by his son, who was considered a genius. Additionally, Hisashi was informed by the audience that they believed the fight had never been fair. That discrimination was just another example of the unjust conduct that the profession had to endure. Hisashi believed that his son's bravery in fighting against his adversary did not diminish his ability to prove himself. Otogekyu's failure to apprehend his niece was the more significant setback. Hisashi was troubled by his own failure to follow orders, but it wasn't the fault of him. He had made sure that the girl would sit separately from the clan and avoid any significant guards. His sister-in-law was completely unconvinced about anything. Her teammates, a maid, and Limbo were the only ones in close proximity to her. The possibility of Orochimaru sending a reliable minion to defeat the Byakugan was present, especially since it could have caused significant harm to Hayashi's family. Despite the difficulty of following their orders, he was convinced that they would enhance the branch's standing. The first task I undertake is to reach out to the branch. Even though I was instructed, I disobeyed them. I didn't get the job done. I didn't get the job done. Failed was the phrase that Hisashi heard in his head. is guaranteed to never experience failure again. Never again. Hisashi was aware that his master would never permit another failure, even if he survived his initial one. Despite the recent events in Konoha, there were still small things that brought color to the area. Following his return from the council meeting, Hayashi informed his wife about the news and asked her to tell Naruto, as he would be preoccupied with other duties. The chaos that ensued after the invasion had resulted in every clan head being buried in paperwork, including the Hokage himself. The old man's desk was barely visible to Hayashi when he last saw it. Later that day, Jiraiya was left feeling disheartened when Hiruzen asked his former student to assist him. It's true that requested wasn't the appropriate term to use. The decision to give Hiruzen some information about activities related to hot springs was left to the woman who would inevitably punish him for unexpected events, such as the last time she had caught him peeking into someone's home. When Hiruzen made his request, the poor Sannin rubbed his scars. Nevertheless, the Hyuga were unaware of the Toad Sage's mistreatment, and Hitomi had chosen not to visit Naruto. Her approach had led her to seek out her daughter instead. Hinata was perplexed by the news that individuals from her own family had expressed their desire for her to die. Additionally, it was not typical to be informed that someone else had been committing acts of violence against you, either. Nevertheless, Hitomi was satisfied that her daughter had more concerns for the boy's situation than she did for herself. Hitomi was a genius in understanding that Hinata's empathy would lead to her ultimate insight through their Kekkei Genkai. Naruto was not terribly depressed, but after the death of Haruki, he had lost his usual cheerfulness. It was no surprise that the boy appeared very reflective. The closeness between Haruki and Naruto was evident to Hitomi, who recognized their importance in achieving such close relations. While walking to her daughter's room, Hitomi observed that both children were equally shy, but they displayed it in entirely different ways. She couldn't wait to see how they would grow together, she said. All except Naruto were aware of Hinata's affection for her, but he may have had more of a problem with him. He seems to view Hinata as an anomaly from the rest of humanity. It's a starting point, right? Hitomi grinned bluntly. Hitomi was unaware of Naruto's perspective on love in his world. Is it possible that he contemplated it? At the final corner, Hitomi entered her daughter's room and proceeded to say, "He is still young." Hinata was reading, which made her happy. If she is accurate, she can spot scrolls on ninjutsu. She's preparing for the test. Hayashi-kun has been stating that she doesn't take her position seriously, even to this day. The girl asked, "Mother," with a confused demeanor. The reason behind her mother's smile was unclear to her. Hitomi commenced by saying, "Hinata, I am eager to ask you to do something for me." Hitomi's smile widened as her daughter nodded and she proceeded with the action. "Your father came back from the council meeting just moments ago. Two of Konoha's genin, Nara Shikamaru and Naruto, seem to have been promoted." With a slight blush and an even bigger smile than before, Hinata heard her mother's voice and nodded once more. "I was aware that Naruto-kun would be promoted," she said with a smile. His burden was a source of concern for some members of the council, but Hitomi believed his actions during the invasion were persuasive. Naruto-kun's role in saving Konoha from agony made it difficult for them to refuse him a promotion, so can you understand why? "Mother, what is your explanation for me?" When Naruto was asked by her father to tell him, Hitomi smiled and hid her amusement, but she didn't reveal his surprise. "I'm confident that Naruto would also be content. I had the impression that he needed something to lift his mood." Hinata nodded his head in agreement. "I'll tell Naruto-kun right away," she said, smiling and quickly running away. Naruto sat with his back to the wall and gazed at the training field. During his time under Haruki's tutelage, he dedicated many hours to improving his taijutsu skills on this particular field. Naruto had never loved the stoic twin brother of the Hyuga clan leader, even though Hisashi would occasionally visit him after Haruki's health declined. Although he was initially nice to Hyuga, the bastard's demeanor changed to that of being as unfriendly as his son. The last few days have been a source of deep reflection for Naruto as he looks back on recent years. He had accepted the news of Haruki's death, knowing that it was bound to happen. But that didn't stop him from missing the man. Haruki had served as his father figure to some extent. Being an adult, he was one of the few people who had shown him respect and helped to guide him. Naruto had to deal with his own life, as he was not guided by the man's guidance and understanding. Naruto's past experiences had left him feeling isolated, which he now associates with loneliness. He was left with an unusual gap in his mind due to this defeat. Naruto stated that the feeling of loneliness was accompanied by pain, contrary to normal feelings. Naruto's feeling may have indicated that he had not been alone in the past few years. The title goes to Bonds. Norit pondered, Naruto declared. Is there a limit to how many children I can have? And why do I only know that I love someone until it's too late? Fate is too harsh on an innocent person. Naruto was in a state of contemplation as he gazed into the room. He was completely unaware of everything that posed a threat, which he could not perceive. Consequently, he failed to notice Hinata's gaze as she hesitated for a few minutes before making the decision to approach him. It almost appeared discourteous to interrupt him when he was so lost in thought, according to her. Afterward, she perceived his melancholic appearance, which made her desire to assist him, but she wasn't sure how to proceed. Nevertheless, she wanted to inform him of his promotion. She had to inform him that the answer was no, as her mother had already informed her that Naruto would be invited to the family dinner that evening. She asked Naruto-kun in a shy manner, hoping to catch his eye. He scowled, Hinata, as he hadn't detected her approaching him. His other sense did not lend much support to her, at least not in the usual way. He shook his head, realizing that he needed to stop sleeping and concentrate. Hinata had no idea how to articulate her intent, as Naruto was revealing clearly. Naruto asked, "Okay, we've got a bench here. Shall we sit on it?" He thought it was impolite to ask her to sit on the ground next to him. Naruto responded with a smile, "What do you want to say?" Father has just returned from council meeting. You've been promoted, Daredevil, Hinata said softly, trying to hide her usual blushing from Naruto's close proximity. Promoted? Naruto scowled for a few seconds, bewildered. Chunin, wa please. He slapped his head and exclaimed, I didn't even know there was a Chunin exams. Despite her worries about him, she chuckled softly. Yeah. Naruto's expression was a frown when discussing the invasion and Haruki. It was a sudden realization. I was surprised by how they promoted me, he said, with a scratched head. Are you not sure? Hinata questioned with a smile. Her comprehension of him had been completely impacted by his performance, which was beyond anyone's expectations, and then some. He licked his stomach and said, I believe that the idea of me becoming a Chunin would be unappealing to most people, he said softly. I opined that I would end up as an eternal virgin, he quipped. I can confirm that I will no longer be part of Team 8. Reluctantly, he thought. It's a good question to ask. He remembered that Jiraiya had planned to train him, but it didn't matter much as he was expected to leave Konoha soon. It didn't make him happy in the slightest. He was aware that his team would be missed. Naruto acknowledged that his team had become more than just friends, and he admitted to being their true selves. Hinata wondered what he was thinking when she saw the mood change. The mother is among the few who have a good reason to be grateful. A mother tried to uplift him by telling him that he had been invited for dinner. Hayashi and Naruto remained quiet during dinner, making it quite awkward. Despite his congratulations on the promotion, Naruto was not overjoyed, and Hayashi felt like he was also being distracted. He was irritated by his brother's conduct. After being surrounded by generations of his family, Hayashi was left with no choice but to make a decision. given that the guest he had been hosting for years had actually murdered some of them. Despite Hanabi's lack of knowledge about these undercurrents, the strange atmosphere at the table was all she could see. Her sister had been acting strangely in the past few days. Hanabi observed that her mother was also somewhat agitated. Her mother was somewhat enigmatic to her. Despite being nearer to her father than Hanabi, her mother had a stronger attachment to Hinata. The Hyuga clan's proud member was constantly irritated by this fact. Naruto was slightly disturbed by the way they were seated. Despite his previous attendance at dinner, Hisashi and Niji were frequently seen with the family. Despite being informed of their situation, Naruto was not particularly concerned about their future. He was pondering ways to ensure Niji's survival in this situation. Naruto had no intention of wasting the lives of those he saved. The way Hinata and Hanabi had switched seats with him was the most disturbing thing. Naruto was informed by Haruki that Hayashi, being the head, sat on the table's top. His wife, Hitomi, who was the matriarch of the clan, was seated on his right. Hayashi would place the heir of the clan on his left. The Hyuga were highly selective about certain practices, leading some to resort to violence and murder in order to gain a better table. Hinata appeared to have lost her position as well tonight. Despite being the firstborn, her position had been gradually eroded over time. Naruto was disheartened as he recognized that it was Hayashi's exclusive chance to select the seats at this table. Naruto felt that the clan was suffocated by rules and traditions, and this was just one of the many reasons why he believed it was necessary. Sitting on a particular chair could be of great significance to them, but they labeled it as civilized. After their meal, Hayashi appeared to wake up once more. He asked his youngest daughter, Hanabi, "Can you spare us?" Despite her reluctance, she followed her father's instructions and left the room with an uneasy look towards the more aggressive Hyuga, at least to Naruto, who had gained extensive knowledge of these individuals. Naruto. Hayashi retorted and asked Naruto-related questions. Waiting for the inevitable question, Naruto asked, "Hayashi-sama, the jutsu demonstration you gave in the exams is connected to several deaths within our clan." Naruto asked, "Are you asking if I am responsible for those deaths?" "Yes, of course." My answer was affirmative. The reason I was asked to explain is that Hinata-sama was the target of their assassination attempt, and I had promised to protect her when I joined your clan as a guest. Why did they want to kill Hinata? How did you know about it? He frowned, his eyes peeled open. Naruto's chuckles were well received by him. Do you want to know how widespread corruption is among your clan members, even if I'm not knowledgeable about the matter? Hayashi and Hitomi were left stunned by the boy's sudden step towards them, as they had not foreseen. However, Naruto was not known for his subtlety, at least not in terms of human interaction. "It's a little over 2 years ago when I first felt for someone who had really bad intentions," Naruto said. Disclosed that he had been instructed by another individual and then killed him, etc. These sensations, Hayashi inquired. Is it true that you possess the ability to feel malice, which is a trait of the Kyuubi? As a result, I came across someone who tried to break into Hinata's bedroom. It's safe to assume that nobody had ever done anything stupid, but this man was distinct. Worse still, the atmosphere is much darker than it usually is. I approached him and inquired about his activities. I was attacked by him. Naruto shrugged off his inability to understand why he was so feeble. I ended his life and then disposed of his remains as a result. I assumed that it wouldn't be a big deal for people to see me kill someone from the clan. Hayashi inquired, how? Naruto commanded Hinata to stop for a moment before snapping his neck and killing him. I threw him into the depths of death, just like the others I found after that experience. The animals there were not bothered by some extra food, and it's the most efficient way to dispose of someone without shedding a single tear. Hinata's expression was so calculating and emotionless that it made her look pale. I recognized that Naruto was accustomed to a harsher reality, but this, Hayashi quipped. Naruto's response was characterized by branched family members, at first, but it was revealed to him later that they had been forced into something by the main family due to their own insecurity. He had completely regressed from his usual demeanor to show his serious side to the family. I felt a sense of anger when I discovered that I had killed people who were forced into that position, so I decided to find some clarity and investigate the circumstances. "Hajime, did you mean from the main?" prompted Hitomi to respond. The first member of the primary family to mysteriously vanish was this man, who held a highly elevated position within the clan. Naruto shrugged off the question, "Do you recall the name of Old Scarface?" Since he only remembered him by the nickname due to the scars on the former's face. Hajime was not the first person in the main house to be targeted for stealing the Byakugan. It's not significant. He passed away peacefully, with my stealth seal ensuring his survival. He never anticipated my existence, so it was effortless to disable him. Despite his stubbornness, he refused to engage in dialogue. Hayashi tapped his forehead. The truth about Hyuga Hajime was that the man was among the 5 clan elders at the time and had gained a significant foothold in Konoha's real estate sector. The clan faced a challenge due to his death, as his inheritance was divided between 2 sons and 1 daughter. The headaches that had been caused by their infighting were once again felt harshly back at Hayashi, who wasted a lot of time trying to resolve their disputes. "I killed that guy, and it didn't go off the rails," Naruto said in a nonchalant tone. Haruki mentioned the individuals from the branch who vanished without explanation during his conversation. "You didn't play a role in that," Hitomi quipped. She was aware that approximately 12 individuals had disappeared in the period following Hajime's demise. "No, really. It seems that someone else was tying up the loose ends, I'm told." Naruto clarified that he had not yet discovered the identity of the person responsible for the incident. Hinata was left feeling cold as his bright blue eyes slipped out of his vision. Afterward, they made a second attempt. Upon realizing that someone had been imitating me and possibly trying to make it appear like something done by one person, I started practicing a new jutsu. Hajime's involvement in this matter was not significant to anyone within his social circle. None of them seemed capable of being the brains behind it, at least not in terms of creativity. Even though I caught the peons that were sent to harm Hinata-sama, they always ended up dead. They were killed by a seal when I brought them over to talk, and I believe it was the result of that action. Naruto admitted to being unaware of the exact method, but acknowledged that the seal on the head was not what it seemed. Even if I could identify any of the individuals who were involved, they were never in positions of leadership. Naruto did not disclose to his family that he had strong suspicions about the involvement of 2 of the elders. The elders' increased vigilance after Hajime's disappearance made it difficult, even for Naruto, to survive without being detected. The fact that Hayashi's father was among them didn't help either. Moreover, even with the stealth seal, Hyuga was still present. It was a problem to get away with it without being detected at best. It was not Naruto's intention to confront a complete guard detail alone. Hayashi asked, "Why is my daughter?" There were those who feared she would become the next leader of the clan, while others attempted to weaken the main family. Hinata's kindness is perceived as a danger by Naruto, who shrugged off the criticism. He observed that Hayashi's eyebrows lifted slightly, which was a slight surprise. She is a potential danger to those who are most benefiting from the clan's current system. The idea of reducing the main's power over the branch and curtailing the unintelligent privileges of the primary family was not welcomed by Hayashi, who still held firm. Naruto had insulted a deep-rooted custom that was deemed necessary and an inevitable evil. It was proven by history that a certain amount of freedom could only be exploited. Hayashi was reassured that the Hyuga were united and held together by rules and traditions, which had helped them maintain their strength. He found it absurd that his feeble daughter could change a system that had been functioning for many years. Although not perfect, Hayashi believed it was the most suitable choice they could make. What kind of ignorance would these children have? Hayashi had reacted to his father's stricter regulations on the profession and now saw how his brother Hisashi responded to those rules. Hayashi had been reminded of this by his own father in the past few days. If he granted the branch some degree of autonomy, they would simply spiral out of control and bring about the downfall of his clan. He knew what he was thinking. Hitomi sighed. Her husband's job had left him with a sense of distrust towards human nature, despite her love for him. The Hyuga was jolted into thinking that strong does not mean good by Naruto's harsh tone, which left him stunned. Hitomi came to the realization that the boy's intelligence was significantly greater than what she had initially hoped for. How well-versed was this boy in Haruki's teachings? Both the branch and its brethren are human beings, capable of both good and evil. The quality of a person's bloodline is not determined by their genetic makeup. Hitomi gave a nod and said, "I do." Both sides of the family have a good reputation, including those in the main family, she stated. The fate of the branch puts a significant strain on their people. Naruto said, Hisashi-sama will be treated as if it were her offspring. Or is it, to put it another way, a different case in point? It's not my primary concern, but I can tell you this. The situation will be dire if the branch is cornered further. Naruto ascended and submitted to his host and hostess. He said, apart from Hinata-sama, I do not want to take any sides in this fight if it goes too far, he said as rushing towards the door. In the event that Hinata-sama is harmed in any way possible. He grinned bluntly, his voice revealing a profound inhuman tone. Hayashi's white eyes were penetrated by a pair of crimson eyes as he turned his head towards them. If I am compelled to take revenge, I will not spare anyone from me. No matter where they are, regardless of their bloodline. I have taken an oath, and I will keep it. Hayashi sat and watched as Naruto closed the door. He couldn't fathom that a boy his age could speak like that. The boy's innate desire to kill was evident, and he recognized that the threat was not invincible. Naruto had demonstrated that he was not content to be passive when his Hinata was in peril. As his powers were growing at an alarming rate, and given what he had already demonstrated during the finals, Hayashi looked on. He couldn't ignore Naruto's righteous claims and the branch was becoming increasingly inflexible. Unlike him, Hayashi was not courageous enough to believe that Hisashi's actions could be avoided. With her eyes wide open, Hinata looked at her mother in shock. It was clear to Hitomi that she had a lot of work to do before her daughter would be fully informed about the situation within her family. The girl's initial concern would be to uncover the factual background of her family. It's going to be a busy time. A day later, 3 letters arrived at the Hyuga estate. Naruto was left feeling conflicted after receiving 3 copies of an invitation. Chie mentioned that it could be advantageous for her. With a lazy demeanor, she had quietly placed her arms on Naruto's chest while he lay motionless on his couch. He didn't care at all about the apartment, which was cluttered with scrolls. He didn't feel very active. He had a multitude of thoughts to consider, and now another topic has surfaced in his mind. He dropped the letter and closed his eyes, drifting off into the distance as he lost concentration. Naruto chuckled, why not celebrate and throw a party? You two-leg, especially now, Chie remarked, as she realized that the blonde was not cognizant of her new language. The current climate has resulted in a significant amount of drama. It is time to move on, as Haruki would have stated. Moreover, it is likely that White Itulegheim would desire someone to accompany her to the party. I'm at a party, right? Naruto sighed. I'm not feeling very much, and considering the show I performed in the finals, I suspect they would prefer not to have me as a contestant. Shouldn't they have sent you a letter instead of wanting you there? Naruto asked with reluctance. He could feign that the cat had started to interfere with more and more things that were not in her domain. After the passing of Haruki, Naruto began to consider Chie's changes. I didn't know, but he was right. After the man's death, Chia began to take things more seriously by blaming herself for being weak. Despite being weak. His eyes welled up as he sighed. Alright, I'll proceed. You are the winner. A lively and fecund peddler. Naruto's self-criticism would have been futile if Jiraiya had disclosed that the captured Otonin, who was accused of spying on him by Haruki, had revealed himself to be a trusted friend and secret agent. He was aware that Chia was surprisingly unyielding. It was generally impossible to dissuade her from doing something. If you were not AKO. Naruto had a clear understanding of not messing around with the young woman. Females who are in a state of anger are intimidating. I would have been doomed if it weren't for the fact that the Kyuubi were all male. Hinata and Naruto exchanged gifts at the main house's waiting hall, which was a source of internal joy when they arrived to pick her up and head to the Nara estate. She, Niji, and all the members of Teams 7, 8, 10, and Gaia had been invited, just like Naruto. Despite the circumstances, the Hyuga had not responded to the request for an apology regarding Niji's absence due to clandestine matters. Hinata was content to be in his company, but the knowledge she had gained from Naruto had left her with a feeling of unfamiliarity. As she walked by, she gazed at him with a furious look. She knew that he had the most powerful and remarkable chakra. His anger made him feel like the scorching sun, stoking with unbridled heat and wiping away any barrier. Despite joining Team 8, Naruto still seemed more compassionate, offering warmth and hope to those in similar situations. Despite her ignorance, she came to the realization that he was merciless towards his enemies. Hinata's question about whether Naruto would have killed Niji was questioned by her mother, which left her feeling uneasy. I am uncertain about what Naruto would have done or not, but I cannot confirm his hesitation, Hitomi stated. Even though he threatened us, it was not something to belittle. Despite your request for Niji's presence, he punished him harshly. He probably would have killed Niji, just as he did with all those other people. It wasn't until Hinata discovered the extent of Niji's injuries. The chest wounds on her cousin were a persistent source of pain, and the head injury had rendered him incapable of walking for days. Surprisingly, Niji's seal had also disappeared. Even though Hitomi was unable to understand why their clan elders were hesitant to reinstate it, Hinata discovered the same thing. Due to her own reflections, Hinata was unaware of her lack of subtlety in watching Naruto. He was concerned about it. Would she be afraid of him and treat him differently if she discovered what he had done to her? To deceive yourself from the lies that others try to tell you? Naruto asked, referencing the girl's bewildered expression. It may be more comfortable to believe a falsehood than to face the truth repeatedly. It's a common belief that ignorance brings happiness, as Hinata put it. It's a bit lonely. Naruto nodded in agreement. He looked into her eyes and sighed. I have been aware of the hatred that others harbor since I was young. Initially, I was uncertain about the meaning of it all. I learned to distance myself from individuals who experienced that sensation, connecting it with the agony that usually followed. The realization that everyone has a dark side to share led me to despise almost everyone. Naruto stated that he had come to the realization that humans were all wicked and detestable beings until it occurred. Despite everything, individuals like you serve as proof of the existence of good people. You demonstrated to me that there is more than just a dark side to one's heart. Hinata was speechless and looked at him, and he nodded in agreement. I don't think I would have killed Niji again. I suppose that's why I don't seem like a very good person. I have a strong suspicion that people are only able to change their views in that manner. Possibly, you are correct in thinking that those who have fallen may not be able to rise again. Without a doubt, it would be an excellent idea. This would help to make the world a little less hopeless. I think we should never give up on our hope, Hinata said with a smile. Unfortunately, Naruto's expression was a shrug. I trust you're accurate in your assessment of him. According to Naruto, do you feel remorseful for taking the lives of those people, and why? She said, they wanted to kill you, so I took them out. Shinobi is prone to doing this, correct? Hinata looked down and began to use her index fingers once more. Naruto expressed that it was a strange experience when they told him that killing someone was difficult at the academy. Even so, he couldn't resist the urge to smile. She and a large number of people her age were training to become shinobi, but they never actually killed anyone. Until now, it was more of a role they had played. Eventually, they would all have to confront the harsh reality. As you can see, I also possess a special ability to perceive things with ease. Therefore, I do not attempt to squander any sympathy on those who are unaware of their feelings. Who are deserving of nobility? With her eyes wide open, Hinata asked if it was that simple. Despite being a shinobi, she could never fathom taking someone else's life. Naruto talked about the inevitable day, even though she did not anticipate it. Naruto's response to the question, is it easy? When faced with the decision of whether to protect my friends or let them die, it becomes apparent which path I should take. After examining the alley, he inquired whether we should turn left or at the next crossing. Hinata remarked, the Nara compound was probably located slightly further down the road to the left, in response. Naruto's response to the question, why did you explain that? He blinked and asked. The individual who felt inferior to all others was threatened by the same group of people. I'm accustomed to feeling hatred all the time, but you, it seems like you are quite unlike that. It's accurate that I made a commitment to support you because it felt like my responsibility, in order to repay you for your actions. With a smile on his face, Naruto expressed his gratitude for the opportunity to live among the Hyuga. Nevertheless, I am no longer concerned about work and other responsibilities. My friendship with you means everything, and I will never leave you alone when my friends are struggling. Hinata nodded and gave a deep, regretful look, uncertain what to say or whether she could even speak. Naruto's love for her was so profound that she didn't even know it, but he spoke about her as if she was the one who could save him. She was perplexed by it, and as they approached the Nara compound, she attempted to decipher it. Hinata was not mentioned by Naruto as the reason for his continued conduct. Naruto was left feeling lonely and sad as a result of being driven away by the Kyuubi, who held him in such high regard. Until one night, he had met the little girl with her remarkable eyes, who would later transform his life. The girl who begged her father to take him in, the girl that felt so different from everyone Naruto had ever met. Naruto never fully grasped how others felt, but he did appreciate the strange feeling that emerged from the girl. His entire life revolved around hatred, leaving him perplexed by the distinct feeling. It captivated him. Despite his lack of knowledge about it, he saw it as the only light that could illuminate any darkness. His world was illuminated by a special light, which was not present in the way she was. In a world filled with fear and hatred, she demonstrated to him that not all individuals are bad. As he gazed at the two youngsters who were heading towards their party, Yamato sighed. He had just pushed off two Chunin who tried to inflict harm on Naruto. There has been a surge of interest in the boy these days, with some simply spying on him and others hoping to attack the young Jinchuriki. If you find out, Hokage-sama won't be pleased, Yamato whispered to himself. I never thought it would be possible for so many people to react this unwisely, she said. I am aware that not all individuals possess the Umbu Corps' degree of discipline. He heard a voice behind him say, happy to save those nonchalant youths. Naruto was approached by Yamato, who looked at him from the back. Despite feeling annoyed by the presence of a green Chunin like Naruto, Yamato chose not to reveal it to him. I'm just a Kage Bunshin. I felt for them, but I appreciate your assistance. Naruto nodded his head and expressed his gratitude. Despite this, Yamato was mesmerized by the tone of his voice, which seemed to suggest that it was all for amusement. The Bunshin smiled and remarked, Your Mokutan, it seems that Ero Sennin has a good idea of whom to select, before disappearing into thin air. Yamato looked back at the original Naruto, who continued to be with Hinata without any commotion, and wondered why he had accepted the position. He stated that the job was simple. He stated that one can only observe a child. He requested that I obtain the initial edition of my upcoming book. He stated that he would sign it for you as well. He stated that safeguarding him is simply a precautionary measure. Jiraiya-sama, Yamato acknowledged the difficulty of their task and sighed. It's a good thing this job is only temporary. He moaned uncontrollably, recalling Jiraiya's assurances. Naruto's Kage Bunshin gave him a slight frown when he received the news. Yamato also possesses a Kekkei Genkai. It would be quite odd to possess such an exceptional talent, right? Mokuton, or whatever, is a term used to describe anything that involves the use of force. Naruto inquired if it was feasible to do something like that with his 3 elements. I am not confident that my Riton can be used properly, as it is beyond my control. Naruto was aware that he had to improve his ninjutsu and taijutsu abilities. The academy's lack of proficiency in genjutsu hindered his ability to perform the sport, despite his passing there. Moreover, the concept of illusions was not his favorite subject. Naruto believed that he could achieve the same level of fearlessness as the Mizukage by possessing both martial arts and spirituality. Several tales had been told to him about how she went from Oto and Suna Shinobi, killing their ranks as if they were nothing to the other. His curiosity about the advanced uses of chakra nature transformation was undoubtedly stimulated by it. He was still vulnerable, if it wasn't for the Chunin exams. Naruto was confident in his ability to defeat anyone with proper preparation, but the speed of some competitors in the finals and prelims made it a little uncomfortable. Naruto was aware that Gaara's defenses were not as robust and versatile as his abilities. It's possible that he encountered a faster opponent in combat without any significant lead. Too much emphasis on just Fuinjutsu could result in a lack of progress. If I don't improve myself, I'll become a passive observer and have no chance with success. While strolling around, Naruto and Hinata entertained themselves with ideas of what a party would entail at the notoriously lazy Nara household, but it turned out to be quite ordinary. Not all Naras were as lazy as Shikamaru, especially not his mother. Kiba had always assured them that Inuzuka Tsume was a formidable opponent, and Naruto had also confirmed this statement. However, Shikamaru's mother would undoubtedly give Tsummute the nod in her favor. Shikamaru expressed that Nara Yoshino was troublesome, in his own words. Naruto believes that S rank could be problematic due to her rebuking one of the guards at the gate. Although Naruto had invited him, the guard's actions were not justified in his view, as he did not condone the mistake. I've had people pick on me for my fuzzball behavior before, and it's not the final time. Naruto was left in awe when he saw Yoshino, but also felt saddened by the fact that not all of the Nara were lazy cloud watchers like Shikamaru. She was a formidable presence, especially in front of her peers, and once provoked some anger. Hinata Yoshino's behavior was entirely different when she turned to him. The vein that had appeared as a patch of skin on her forehead had disappeared, and she expressed regret for the guard's actions. "I'll be dropping by to see Hitomi-san next week, shall we?" she exclaimed as she led them back home. "Yoshino-san is fond of our tea ceremonies," Hinata declared, observing Naruto's slightly puzzled expression. Shortly after observing 2 more Naras. As Hinata approached the home of Shikamaru and his parents, he was flanked by his father, who was familiar with Nara Shikaku, the leader of the Narinda clan. Shikamaru nodded in agreement and said, "Glad, we can all come here too. I've received the letter, but I haven't received Niji yet." Naruto apologized to Hinata for his involvement in clan business, despite the fact that Niji was injured. He will likely be kept busy for an extended period. Shikamaru scowled slightly at his accomplishment in the promotion. "Thanks to all of you. It's also you, by the way. Am I content with this? Of course, it will be a struggle to do all the extra work, but at least I won't have to take that awkward exam once more. I am owed thanks for my promotion, as per the words of my father. Naruto's expression was, ah, as he blinkered and looked up at Shikaku. The scarred Jonin recounted, my son stood out during the invasion because of you, as if it were an entirely rational decision. Thanks to his actions, he was able to earn the Hokage's promotion. Despite not appearing in the final round of the Chunin exams. Naruto's expression was one of politeness, and he shrugged and shaken his head. I'm not accountable for Shikamaru's actions. He accomplished the task alone, with Temari-san's assistance. I was already completely drained by that point, and he and Temari-san just got me close enough to make an opening with the last of my chakra. I didn't do much more than that, and he earned his promotion without any external influence. Shikamaru-san was able to secure his position in the exams independently, as stated by Hinata. Shikamaru was credited by Kyoji-san for the Team 10's advancement, as Ino-san Aya condemned him to be responsible for his success on the road. When Shikamaru's son tried to play down his own actions, Shikaku chuckled at him. I feel like my son is still too modest. Maybe I need to challenge him more during our training so that we can uncover some of his underlying qualities, he said with a grim expression, before leaving the room and enjoying his evening. Standardize with me, my friend. It's time for some more training, Shikamaru remarked, grimacing with irritation. I'll be dead in no time if they give me more training, please don't say anything else. It's best for me to stay silent when my mother is present, as I am aware of my reluctance. She persistently asks me about the problematic woman's behavior. You're still not training, aren't you? Naruto asked with a smirk. Shikamaru retorted, you were the one who was sleeping with me during my academy years. It was only because I had already trained for the rest of the day, which made me feel exhausted. Naruto smirked at the backlash of his bunshin, admitting that it was quite bothersome in those days. I saw you invited Haku, he said with fascination, watching over the crowd in the yard. Hinata observed the gathering of teams, including rookie teams and Team Guy minus Niji, as well as the 4 sense wolves from each team. Additionally, she noticed the young shinobi from Kirigakure. Hako's support during the finals made me realize the importance of inviting him, which is why I did. Shikamaru's expression was one of dismissal, shrugging off his worries. Temari was also a contender, but Suna's trio couldn't match his performance. The letter was not delivered to them as our messenger couldn't reach them, and the letter had to be sent to Jiraiya-sama instead. Naruto's hiccups were minor, but they left him feeling animated and invigorated. They are still in captivity, but they'll be heading to their new abode soon. If you want to go somewhere, they are open next week. After seeing Shikamaru's piercing stare, Naruto announced that he would be keeping an eye out for Gaara. I thought it was logical to allow one demon to safeguard the other, did you? Shikamaru seemed confused. Oh, please, Naruto sighed. You were aware of what was already known due to your intelligence. Don't be fooled, I may not be as bright as you are, but I'm not entirely foolish. Although Shikamaru had determined that Naruto was the Kyuubi's container, the idea was not favored by the Nara. After watching the finals, Shikamaru was left with no other option but to accept it. Given his long-held secrecy about his abilities, it was the only way for Naruto to match Gaara's demonic might. The sole reason for Naruto's chakra to spike or his physical body to change like that was due to this. He had an additional chakra, which was not a part of the human body. Shikamaru did not possess a sensor, but the foul chakra he felt emanating from Naruto was undoubtedly linked to the Kyuubi, the only demon associated with Konohagakure. Despite his expectations of a more rational explanation, Shikamaru was surprised to learn that the confirmation was not an overt act. He admitted that he couldn't affirm the veracity of what was considered sensible in the current circumstances. The world had gone mad. He was aware that the majority of people had a negative opinion of Naruto for some reason. With the exception of Hinata, Shikamaru and Choji had always been the only two individuals who had willingly collaborated with Naruto at the academy, and Shikawa had witnessed many things that didn't mesh with his feelings. Despite his friend's lack of openness, Shikamaru had faith in him and believed that Naruto was still a friend. While they were in a conversation, Kurenai came up to them and smiled and waved his hand at Kiba, who had an equally happy Akamaru on his head. Shikamaru-san asked, "Shiki, can you spare me a moment to talk to my team?" She grunted and then proceeded to the food-loaded table where Choji was last seen. "Naruto, thank you," Kurenai said with a smile. "You truly deserved it, and after all this trouble, you end up earning something good. I'm proud of you, even though you never want to take such a risk again. I wish the invasion had never happened, and I would be happy to remain a genitalian," Naruto declared grimly. "Nevertheless, the place is a hell. It transpired to be something. It's time to stop complaining. It doesn't mean I'll never have to face a bijou every day." Kurenai nodded as he spoke. "Yes, I think that's the case. Nevertheless, your actions were extremely perilous. You are correct in saying that it occurred. It's time to move on from this. Our team will be affected by your promotion to Chunin, which means we need to discuss some things. We need to change our team." Hinata looked attitude with wide open, staring at her white eyes. "Naruto's departure from Team 8 is inevitable," Kurenai confirmed with a sigh. "Ultimately, he was promoted to Chunin, but you two are still considered genin for the time being." "No, it's not possible. This is not a strange way," Kiba protested. "It's not a question of course. What's the rationale for that?" "I refuse." Kurenai clarified that Naruto is part of Team 8, regardless of the arbitrary ranks within the group. He doesn't mind, as it means a Chunin member cannot be included in genin who have not yet been promoted. Hinata and you would have had to rely on field promotions if the genin was eligible for the Chunin exams, but in that case, the team wouldn't have been affected. In your case, I suspect that promotion is merely a matter of time. The difficulty of the exam this year could have hindered either of you from getting promotions, as Kurenai suggested to Kiba and a surprised Hinata. "P promoted? Me?" Hinata asked. "Nevertheless. If it weren't for Naruto and Gaara, Neji would have been one of the most powerful participants," Kurenai remarked. "According to Naruto, being a Jinchuriki is simply cheating," she quipped. "If only the referees had the power to remove the fuzzball, I would have been able to do it without my involvement," Naruto joked. "Hinata-sama, I acknowledge that you would have taken the loss of most others," Naruto said with a smile. "You should be aware that dealing with your Jukin is a difficult task, and you may have better eyesight than Neji. Besides Neji, you're only likely to come across guys like Haku and Sasuke. The rest of us would have been spoiled." Kurenai stated that Kiba would have been among the top geniuses in taijutsu. "We will train you to counter or dispel the genjutsu, even though it may require more skill to do so. The Uchiha boy's experience of being pushed by you to that extent is just what I need to hear." Kiba chuckled slightly, taken aback by the accolade. In comparison to Naruto, both he and Hinata felt relatively powerless. They were informed that Naruto's strength was not the cause of their weakness. Kyuubi's figure is a small wonder. Kiba found out. It is possible to argue that Naruto's advantage is primarily due to the demon, but this is not entirely accurate. No one can match the tenacity of this bastard when it comes to training. Naruto resorted to the original question after you mentioned occasionally, but not before. Team 8 has been instructed to protect the 3 genin from Sunagakure, as directed. Kurenai nodded in response to the order. Konoha is currently lacking in personnel due to the numerous casualties and injuries. Until then, I may have to go on solo missions, but that will come later. It was communicated that you are now vigilant, so you won't be in trouble. Naruto, do you have a guard? Kiba nodded in agreement. She said, Yeah, they dropped some Umbu guy on me. Naruto sighed as he saw a group of men lurking in the shadows, keeping the more bothersome people away. It's evident that people were surprised to see that I've developed such impressive physical strength. You are aware of the Kyuubi and their activities. Hinata's mood was somewhat disheartening. While en route to this place, she observed that two men had been watching them, but Naruto's realization that she saw them led him to declare that they would be dealt with soon. A man who was much stronger interfered with the view before the two observers could jump towards them. However, Hinata was hurt by the mere thought that Naruto would have to leave them and there would be a distance between them. When she finally came to terms with the boy who had been a mystery to her for most of her life, she wished it was not now. Kiba was just as irritated by this situation, if not more so than angry. The original teammate was changed due to a bad situation, but it ended up working out pretty well. They are now urging the dismantling of the pack for a few unintelligent guidelines. Ignore those regulations. Kurenai's awareness of his frustration led her to take action and put an end to it. As Naruto is a Chunin, Team 8 cannot take part in the Chunin exams in its current form, Kurenai stated with reassurance. The prospect of both of you remaining genin or leaving with the expectation of field promotions, which are not common, would be an indication. They typically spend a significant amount of time on multiple missions, which hinders their eligibility for higher-level missions. It appears to me that both of you would lose a considerable amount of potential. Depending on the way you develop, both of you have the potential to become Chunin or Jonin. Irrespective of Kurenai's arguments, Hinata remained defiant, but Kiba refuted them. Naruto expressed his appreciation by smiling and stating, "I acknowledge your concern. There is no valid reason to object to it." "And Naruto-kun?" Naruto inquired, gesturing to himself. "I said, I'm your friend, just remove the suffixes." "You're right, I was told," he said in a smirk. "Despite this, I am aware that I will be leaving Konoha shortly." Even Kurenai was taken aback by this. Naruto stated that he is going to be taken in by the old pervert as his full-time pupil. I had a lack of interest in it. At least not yet. I apologize for being oblivious to this particular issue, as it is still a party and not yet fully official. Despite my uncertainty about the exact timing, I am aware that it will happen. Jiraiya was expected by Naruto to stay in the same place as Hiruzen, but he was not allowed to disclose this fact to his teacher and friends. One of the most significant secrets kept in Konoha was the truth about Sarutobi Hiruzen's health. After a while, Naruto sighed and carried on with his story. "I'm enamored with the idea of going on missions with you guys, it's just my favorite. The sight of you makes me feel almost overwhelmed. What is considered to be normal? I had hoped that my exam results would alter the perception of me among the Konoha community." Naruto shrugged, but his blue eyes showed small indications of disappointment. "Some of the Hyuga are angry with me, but that is an entirely different situation." "Naruto, you are a hero," Hinata protested softly. "Many individuals are aware that. It's not at all serious. The level of strength you displayed in front of others led to some people becoming even more frightened. Once things settle down, they will come to understand what you've done. It's insane, that power," Kiba quipped, gesturing to himself. "As for you, I too am afraid that you could be my enemy in the future even though we are still just children. It's likely that you would be the second individual to receive an international flee on-site order with his S rank, following the Yondaime incident. It's possible, but I don't want to be feared." Naruto shrugged, indicating that power was never his objective. "It's just a means to an end, and I have to improve my skills or face the possibility of being hunted by foxes. My plan is to go to the place where I keep the toads so that I can receive specialized training. If I were to go against my will, I would stay by you all until I got over the fox. The seal is not a permanent possession, so I must be ready to endure more and more of the Kyuubi's chakra. I am cognizant of my obligation." Naruto's statement is accurate, Kurenai confirmed, glaringly smiling as she watched Akamaru ask Naruto for a hand. Unlike Kiba, who was completely unaware, the young dog had a remarkable ability to detect others' emotions and attempted to ease Naruto's worries. I am confident that Team 8 will continue to perform at their best. Karen is expected to take over your position once she has completed all the necessary procedures, according to what I heard. Karen, Kiba appeared to be drooping slightly. Shit, Akamaru, he whispered to the joyful barking boy. I acknowledged the statement. Naruto's laughter prompted him to look at the Inuzuka with surprise as it seemed that Kiba will now receive a lot more attention. Isn't it obvious? Kiba muttered, gesturing. She's scary when she sees no one else around. I reckon it's more impressive than some other jerk. We have knowledge of the type of madness she experiences. What about the Team 10, he asked, but quickly changed his mind. Kurenai said, I don't know. Asuma has not mentioned who Shikamaru is to be replaced. Nonetheless, the Ino Shikacho team holds great importance for them, and it's a customary practice in Konoha. It's possible that they will experience a shift in their situation, but I'm uncertain. The next exam necessitates the presence of a new member. Without any suspicion or concern, it would be difficult for Asuma to bring in a new member to his team right before the exam and have Karen join as soon as possible. The team's equilibrium will require some time and preparation during the training phase. After a prolonged argument, Naruto discovered that someone was approaching them. Haku, the person he had planned to meet, unexpectedly turned out to be him. Naruto, what is the topic of conversation you desired to have in private? In a formal statement, Haku stated that he had asked him if Uzumaki-san would be his destination in Mizukage-sama tomorrow. Today, Hokage-sama offered to give Mizukage Shusher something. Can you tell me more about it? Naruto chuckled with disbelief and said, I see. She said, Monday morning, is that okay with me? Haku slightly agreed. It's safe to assume that Mizukage-sama and Hokagedo will be meeting at 11 o'clock, so any earlier time would not pose a problem. Alright, I'll be there by 10 o'clock. Despite wanting to ask Miss Mizukage for some items, Naruto smiled and gestured to Haku to lead him back to the party. Shikamaru asked if they could join him. Yes, Nara-san wanted to thank me for my assistance during the invasion, and I was not able to do much, Haku replied softly. It is somewhat peculiar to be present at a party of this nature. I never imagined Konoha would be like this. What is Kirigakure's stance on us? Sakura expressed feeling hurt, but not physically. Her loss during the exams was erased by a much greater amount of pain. She wished she could forget the many instances when her parents were considered to be meddling, loud, and sometimes just plain annoying. Her mother's death during the invasion had left her and her father heartbroken. Following Mabuki's burial, Haruno Kazashi had attempted to find a way out of his sorrow and despair. He had resorted to drinking copious amounts of it, much to Sakura's dismay. She was overwhelmed with the weight of dealing with her own sorrow and caring for a father who had been drunk. The exhaustion she felt was intense. Sakura was convinced that her best friend would not truly comprehend her pain, despite Ino's daily visits to her. Sakura speculated that Sasuke may have been affected by the same loss, but she found out that he had become more distant. Training was the only thing he seemed capable of. When she didn't make it to the finals, he had been harsh during their missions. Despite her apparent lack of performance, she was too distracted and fatigued to operate at her best. Despite this, Sasuke chose to overlook her suffering. Surprisingly, Shino had been the most helpful person to her. Even though he appeared somewhat uneasy about it, the boy never really spoke much to her and actually made a genuine effort to help her. Sakura contended that he was an aburame, and emotions were not their primary focus. If Sakura had not been with Ino, she wouldn't be able to predict her actions. They were her authentic pals. She looked back at the spot where Kakashi was conversing with Shikaku, seemingly unconcerned. Despite showing signs of concern, he seemed unaware of how to assist her. His typical apathy had not been helpful. After learning of Mabuki's death, she felt a strong sense of anger that had been absent in her thoughts for some time. Kakashi had made an awkward attempt to explain why Shinobi typically dealt with loss and grief. Despite the fact that her friends and family had already lost touch with him, she was unable to comprehend how her sensei could speak like that. Nevertheless, Kakashi was not too aggressive when it came to dealing with adolescents. She shook her head and looked at the revelers enjoying themselves in the festivity. Despite the destruction and death in their village, why did they still celebrating with Ino who had brought them for promotion? Had Nara attempted to insult him by inviting Haku, what would have caused him to suffer the same negative reaction? Sasuke had even tried to leave when he first met him, but Ino tracked down the boy on his way out. He had been pulled back by the irritable blonde, just as she did during the academy period. Despite their frequent clashes, Sasuke was so annoyed that he didn't realize that Sakura had not joined Ino. Upon reflecting on this, Sasuke observed the confused expression in his teammate's eyes. He smirked in pain. What is the reason behind her snub? She had a family, she was loved, but she takes happiness for granted. Despite her loss, she has family to look up to. She fails to acknowledge that, always pursuing me, even though I would have done everything to help my family. My family is my life. With a stoic expression, Sasuke attempted to shake off the sadness. He had always been irritated by her actions, as she assumed the very things he desired. She is not entitled to voice her grievances. Her mother was the only one who survived, whereas I lost my entire family. Despite the fact that her mother's passing was caused by an accident, she lost so much pain that she couldn't even comprehend her own pain. Nevertheless, the girl who carelessly alluded to Naruto's lack of family status while the blonde had left their team was also present. What was she aware of? Despite his ex-teammate's annoying behavior, Sasuke was aware that Naruto would be one of the few who could comprehend his pain. He has also lost a family member. It's not significant in any way. His identity is only that of a Uzumaki, and I belong to the Uchiha family in terms of intelligence. Sasuke shrugged and grimaced as he stood up to escape from the situation. Sasuke anticipated that Ino would be able to escape without any trouble as he was conversing with Haku. He failed to notice the solitary tear on Sakura's cheek, as she observed her crush completely disregarding her while he left. With Ino out of control and Haku's lack of concern for Sasuke, Rock Lee observed Sakura sitting separately from everyone else with a melancholic expression. He opted to engage in conversation with her. Sakura-san, what the hell is up with you? Lee scowled her eyebrows into a frown. Sakura smiled and said, nothing is wrong, Lee-san, but even Rock Lee, who was not the most observant genitalia in Konoha, could not be convinced. He chose to sit with her. He was aware of his commitment to safeguard her until the end, but it did not come to fruition. It appeared that her current problems could not be resolved by a simple blow-up. Nevertheless, he was insistent on making an effort to assist her at least. You're a very melancholic individual, as I can tell from my reflection. It's not your business, Sakura-san, but I want you to keep quiet about it. Is worrying considered a negative? No, but it is not. Sakura bowed and abandoned her unsuccessful attempt to smile, revealing a pitiful grimace. My answer is no, but I don't care. My mother passed away during the invasion. What is a snake? When a wall collapsed, she was hit by it. Sakura emitted a scent while sniffing. I can't say it enough. It's something I observe. Lee ingested her food by mouth. My thoughts and prayers go out to you, my loved ones. Thanks, Lee-san, Sakura said softly with a smile, now that her words have become more authentic. Just saying that, I'm not sure. I had no intention of attending this party, she admitted. This is not a time for celebration, especially for those who lost loved ones, Lee said, and Sakura also had an expression that was painfully tender. He observed her appearance. Sorry, I just recollect something that was quite unpleasant. Lee sighed and said, He didn't want to discuss it, but he believed it could divert Sakura's attention from her own suffering and demonstrate his understanding of her condition. I was 1 year short before my genitals. Due to my father's untimely death during his mission while my mother was pregnant, I have never had the opportunity to meet him. My mother was the most important person in my life. She shared with me the details of how she and her father had escaped to Konoha. Despite our lack of clans or financial stability, she made sure that I always enjoyed my childhood. Lee looked down at his mother's condition, which had been deteriorating since she became pregnant the year before he became a genitalia member. The boy's confident demeanor had always been a source of worry for Sakura, who believed that it made him look like an airhead. To what extent was she mistaken about him? She endured months of suffering and made a commitment to stay with me, Lee eventually acknowledged. She was strong, but she didn't have it. She was defeated in the fight. During the time when it was inevitable, I am now aware. Back then, I just recollected how I felt. I am aware of the fact that Sakura confessed to having no knowledge of the situation. It taught me that death is a part of life, Lee smiled softly. Niji, my teammate, always believes that fate dictates everything. But I don't think so. Life happens to us, it's just the way things are, Lee emphasized. Nevertheless, we must maintain a positive outlook. If we accept that life has already been chosen for us and that we are creatures of fate, how can we claim to be alive? I made a commitment to my mother that I would live my life in her honor and that, no matter what, I will never give up, Lee said. Sakura-san, I'm sorry to hear that you're hurting, but please don't give up. Living your mother's name is the most honorable way of living, rather than letting her down. Tears streamed down Sakura's cheeks. Although she recognized the boy's correctness, she remained unfazed. The moment her mother passed away, she felt as though someone had shattered a part of her heart, and the pain was unbearable. Thank you, Lee-san, she finally conveyed her thanks. I'll take care of it. I'll give it my best shot. Naruto had left when Ino came to inquire about Sasuke-kun's significant harm. Despite the fact that Haku's face had been priceless, he still shrugged off his troubles. Ino's annoyance was still as persistent as when they first met on the academy, with constant bossiness, nagging, and a desire to know everything. Nevertheless, he was hopeful she would remain faithful. Naruto inquired, why do some people never stop curious? I'm finally able to communicate in the Mizukage language, which is nice. Naruto contemplated the matter of reaching Niji. With their aversion to laws, the Hyuga's decision not to kill him is heartbreaking. Kiba called out, Naruto, up, and awakened Naruto from his nightmare dream. Naruto's expression was, ah. All you need is to come here, Kiba said. Naruto could discern that he had the right perspective. After eating his fill, Akamaru sat down and stretched on the table as he was unable to continue standing. Turn on Choji, before they squirm and swallow up. Kiba exclaimed. With his table occupied by half of the dining area, Choji was left at his own table, a Kimichi apparently translated partying as an all-you-can-eat competition. He was not challenged by anyone who didn't have the mental capacity to do so. Naruto could have, but there was no Ichiraku ramen to be found. Naruto said, thanks, Kiba, Hinata and Shino sit at the table with you. They were told by Shino about his time in Team 7 and how Sakura was experiencing depression due to her mother's passing. Before the mood could be too much, a black and white blur was seen, and Naruto was suddenly knocked over by another blur. Naruto sighed and lifted Konohamaru up while asking, what is it this time? Why are you unable to leave Chie alone? Can you explain what I am? Ah, no, Naruto replied by sneezing his nose into the bridge. He said, "I know you're there, Hanabi-sama," knowing full well that the Hyuga girl would never tell anyone about their pursuit of Chiito. Naruto was aware that both children had a goal in mind to catch Chie before anyone else. On certain occasions, he had indulged in aiding Chie by torturing the children. He had to admit that the cat was well versed in her pranks. The sight of a brown-haired shadow shooting away made Hinata look happy. Naruto rebuked him by saying, "Konohamaru-chan, let's take a deep breath and see. I implore you not to mistreat that poor cat like that." Nevertheless, she expressed her opinion. Naruto's sigh was heard. With her long fluffy tail wiggling behind her, the cat tried to look innocent but couldn't. "Chie." Naruto said, "What? Do you think I should ask Ako?" Chie ceased to sweat for a few seconds before breaking her arm. That." She admitted that she may have jumped on Scarfy Two-Legs' head. "I could have been amused by him, but not to a significant degree. It didn't come as a surprise to me that Chibi White Eyes was so close." Hanabi-chan inquired of Hinata if they could concentrate on stealth, and Hinata provided an explanation, which caught both Chie and Konohamaru off guard. Konohamaru was taken seriously by Naruto, who suggested asking for additional training from Ji-san instead of losing to him. Konohamaru's expression conveyed a sense of sadness as he said, "Ji-san is still in bad health. Uncle Smokey is definitely available to lend me some elbow grease." Naruto pointed out that Asuma-sensei was present there last time I saw him. "He is likely to be in the company of a woman with red eyes and black hair. He's always been," he joked. With a big grin on his face, Konohamaru exclaimed, "Thanks boss," as he made his escape. Naruto let out a sorrowful cry. To inform Konohamaru that his grandfather was missing would be cruel, as it was not within the boy's ability to do so. The location was in between Hiruzen and Konohamaru. He lamented about the young boy. "Ugh, please." Chie's start was accompanied by the announcement of this outcome. Shikamaru completed her sentence by saying, "troublesome," as he walked towards them, and then tentented. "I saw Asuma-sensei's nephew a few times, didn't I?" Kiba responded to the question, "Why does he constantly play games with fireworks when trying to camouflage?" The Hokage's grandson is the one who embodies his personality. Although there is some discomfort in the buttocks, it's mainly a delightful brat. Before Naruto starts ranting about his great boss again, the square rock disguise warns you. Spectacles you with ample time to escape. He resembled a small, non-committal Asuma, Shikamaru sighed. "Oops, I'll always remember the nickname Uncle Smokey." Tenten asked about Hinata. "Is it possible for you to inquire?" Understanding, Hinata replied, "All right. Niji, about this biographer." Tenten's frown indicated that he was busy with clan business, which we keep hearing. Gai-sensei is uncooperative in revealing the actual events. Naruto responded to Hinata's hesitation by saying, "We can't tell you the same. At least it is not yet too late." Looking at Hinata, he added that it would be better for Niji and his team to remain silent. "I can't say it enough." Despite her apparent disappointment, Tenten stated, "I see." Naruto's expression of seriousness was met with a frown. "I can assure you that I am not telling a lie. The last time I heard was when they said his wounds were finally opening, so be careful, because I don't want to spread false information." Although Tenten wasn't particularly thrilled, she and the others still had a great time. They recounted their adventures as genin and the general state of living. Naruto was taken aback by the level of tolerance they displayed amongst themselves. The entire group almost gave him the impression of being accepted. All of them, with the exception of Sasuke who had left at some point, and Sakura who suggested that she should take her father out to the nearest pub. Lee returned to his usual overenthusiastic state shortly after she left. He had reportedly been conversing with Sakura most of the time, but now he was turning his attention to Naruto. Naruto's ears remained sensitive due to the volume Lee had used during his rematch demands, which resulted in Kiba confronting Naruto and thus competing with Lee for the right to fight back. Naruto found it amusing to watch them battle it out, ultimately resulting in the outcome. Naruto expressed his relief that they didn't fight against him, as both of them are exasperating in taijutsu, and if they did work together, it would be a real pain to deal with. The quarrel between Lee and Kiba persisted until Chia managed to smuggle sake onto the stage. Lee was fortunate enough to drink the entire bottle all at once, as Guy explained that he mistakenly thought it was a water bottle. Lee's condition could have gotten worse before she lost consciousness, as Guy worried. Naruto was unsure of the reason behind his suspicion, but he could see Chia's eagerness to continue experimenting on this matter. He was at a loss as to whether to support her or forbid her from doing it. Guy's additional, youthful, shout caused Naruto to fall off the scene. Ignoring the consequences is a violation. Every green-skinned shinobi in Konoha is insulted by those two. Lee was an insult to Naruto, who had more or less replicated Jiraiya's fashion sense, and to every Kohai who copied their sensei's style. Naruto discovered that his classmates' behavior was superior to what he had anticipated. Shikamaru had informed him that Naruto would be staying with Gaara for the time being, so he suggested dropping by to say hello. He even committed to teaching Naruto shogi. Hearing that had made Hinata laugh, she was overcome with silence. Even though Haruki was successful in teaching Naruto proper etiquette, her clan members still occasionally discussed games like chess and shogi during their two unsuccessful attempts. The mystery surrounding the murder of an innocent carrier pigeon was still unsolved, as one of the pieces had managed to pierce 3 walls. Naruto had affirmed that he was testing out a new seal, but it was believed that Naruto may have been frustrated by being subjected to such severe beatings. Upon hearing Shikamaru's offer, Choji promptly agreed to come and ask which flavor of chips was the one that Naruto liked the most. Naruto was puzzled by the sudden outburst that caused Ino and Shikamaru to become panicked and shift the focus away from their battle. According to reports, the flavor of chips was a contentious issue with Team 10. Tenten's team of 10 had promised to visit, and she assured them that they would also make a visit. However, they were still expected to keep the promises they had made to each other. Naruto would teach her some seals, while Tenten would instruct him on how to use weapons. She also told him that without Niji, she wouldn't survive long because Lee and Guy were just too much for one sane person to handle. What surprised Naruto the most was that Shikamaru had once told him that Narugi is now the village hero and that he saved Suna from his own Jinchuriki, which would have caused much of the damage that Ichibi would cause in the villages. Naruto's experience was strange and unexpected. While entering the room, Naruto expressed his surprise, questioning, "What did I just feel?" Asuma was dragging Konohamaru as the Jonin went home after the darkening. The teams, consisting of teams 8 and 10, along with Guy from 10-10, had opted to stay for some more fun after successfully carrying Lee home. Shino had also departed from somewhere during the ride. Regrettably, none of them could have uttered the words when it was time to go. Haku was a separate entity from the main character. It was rumored that Ino had made him feel scared before moving forward. Naruto was perplexed as to how the pupil of Zabuza, the feared demon of the hidden mist, could have been scared off. Sasuke's situation made Ino appear to be a little overly possessive. As the party progressed, a single individual was in charge of the group of genin, who both promoted Chunin and their Jonin sensei. His gaze remained concealed, as he studied the facial expressions and conduct of every teenager. He was chosen for this position because of his family's background. He had the ability to lurk, but his presence was so great that even a Jonin would not be aware of it. However, at the moment, he was not following his employer's directives and interests in inspecting the Jinchuriki. Although intriguing, the man found it much more captivating to see another young boy. After all these years, how did the boy evolve? Considering all the things that occurred during his last days guarding Naruto, Yamato was left feeling unimpressed by the small celebration. It's a little bit of an undercurrent. He pondered, I've reached a point where I can unwind, but then find myself getting bored, with smug expressions. While sat on the roof, keeping his distance from others, Yamato observed the gathering taking place on the small square in front of Nara House. Yamato observed that he was mistaken for someone at the party, but it turns out that Naruto is actually having fun. Despite his usual sense of calmness, Yamato was still haunted by the sight of people stalking him and others trying to harm him, while he solely focused on protecting the village. Those who are aware of his actions were unwilling to speak out due to their lack of knowledge. What made them so resentful towards him after years of it, and now he seems to show that they were wrong. It will take some time before their behavior truly transforms. Isn't he an intriguing boy, was the response. Yamato drew a kunai and approached the speaker simultaneously, jumping up and away from him. Who? He began, looking at the covered-up face. All of a sudden, the world appeared to be devoid of meaning as it distorts itself slightly. He exclaimed, Genjutsu. The cloaked man didn't seem to be too worried when he heard Yamato saying, Kai. The man's response to a top umbu in Konoha was surprisingly nonchalant, almost as if he were talking about the weather. Is there anyone else who could act as a safeguard for the child, given the importance of their role and potential future? Yamato asked, Who are you by the way, with a reserved demeanor. The cloaked figure expressed disbelief by saying, It's up to you to determine how he managed to sneak up on me. If you were to oppose me, I could guarantee your demise if we opposed you. Nonetheless, I am not interested in doing that. I came here to obtain the necessary information, not to commit murder. Yamato was reticent when he spoke about big words. Konoha's umbu was not easily dropped. You are intruding onto the Nara clan's property. I am entitled to seek retribution from anyone. That's the most amusing thing I've ever heard. I wondered about the inheritance left by the third one, but I also observed their successor. What type of individual would Sarutobi-sama select to safeguard the boy, given that Yamato gathered his chakra and made the snake hand seal? How disappointing, the man muttered. After launching a volley of kunai, Yamato shouted, Mokutan, Mokusatsu Shirbari no Jutsu, according to the Japanese leader. Despite being chased by the kunai, the man was caught by surprise when multiple branches of wood blew out of the roof and spun around, leaving him trapped with no escape, while the wooden binding held in place. I believed I conveyed my lack of enthusiasm for fighting, which was not true. The guard of the boy is deemed to be competent and I am satisfied with his performance, declared the unclothed individual. Mokutan has not been present in the world for many years. Yamato asked, Who is this man? I won't ask him again. Despite the situation, there are still some survivors. As an elite umbu, I expected you to feel something. I am not alone in my admiration for this unforeseen talent. Are you able to detect anything? Yamato consulted his chakra, looked around, but could not find anything. He was not thrown in any illusions or other forms of jutsu. The attempt to sever his chakra did not result in any change. Nevertheless, it has been a while since any of the umbu encountered someone like me. The man's hand was directed towards the cap after the wooden restraints around the cloaked figure disappeared. Despite the fact that Kakashi of the Sharingan is a highly respected figure, his abilities are inferior to those of their masters. For the first time in years, Yamato was filled with panic. He gazed straight into a pair of Sharingan gloves. Uchiha Itachi's expression of disbelief was heard as the unconscious umbu collapsed in front of him. The man had been unaware he was caught in his genjutsu from the moment Itachi first revealed himself to him. Although the umbu had dissected the first floor, it was evident that the man was not accustomed to confronting a legitimate Uchiha. It would have been unsurprising to trap him, except for the chance of being found in the middle of the village. Despite this, the man had fulfilled his duties. Although the Shodai's Mokutan was resurrected, it was more than just an intended purpose. I was fortunate to have caught him from the start. The presentation of jutsu would have been subject to an excessive amount of hype. Itachi felt like he had to move on from the part of the plan that was executed. He was aware that he wanted to remain for a little longer. The sight of his little brother leaving the party left Itachi in disbelief. Sasuke's loss was a result of his lack of self-control, as he had learned. Before his brother had to leave Konoha, Itachi remembered his impatience towards him. Was Sasuke's performance the final hope of their formerly noble clan? Despite Itachi's frown, why does Sasuke continue to act like they did? His little brother's talent was evident to him. Sasuke's Sharingan was awakened at a young age, but his growth was significantly greater than what was expected in their clan. Although it trailed Itachi's own progress, it was certainly commendable. Nevertheless, proficiency was insufficient. The backyard gathering at the Nara estate had provided Itachi with an ideal setting for studying his brother, and several things he had observed had been bothering him. The cursed seal that befell Sasuke was the first and most blatant problem. Itachi's Sharingan revealed that Orochimaru had left this behind. The snake summoner had not informed Akatsuki, and it was believed that Orochimaru had also died, which Itachi recalled with sorrow. Itachi came to the realization that the Sannin had fled. He had escaped, but was still not back at the organization. The sole logical outcome was betrayal, and Orochimaru's loyalty was questionable in the beginning. Although their leader's response to failure was also a contributing factor, Orochimaru was aware that Akatsuki could not lose both Sasori and Orojimi, the chief scientist of the spy network. The man had previously attempted to obtain the Sharingan, but Itachi chose not to reveal it. The man was a menacing figure, and snakes were best kept close to the audience rather than allowed to wander away to create something from nothingness. Itachi's regret after witnessing the man mark his young brother so boldly he didn't kill him years ago. Itachi opted to punish Orochimaru for not interfering with his plans. Although they were not friends, Itachi had noticed that he was closely associated with Konoha's Jinchuriki. Sasuke's hatred and envy were clearly visible to Itachi. The Jinchuriki's occasional glance towards Itachi indicated that they were deeply entrenched in rivalry, with one even more intense than the other. The fact that his last conversation with his younger brother had taken place several months ago made Itachi aware that he was probably partially to blame. Nonetheless, this preoccupation with authority was detrimental. Furthermore, Itachi sensed that it was of little consequence to be envious of someone else's might. The only response to encountering a higher-ranking official in authority should be to train oneself to become stronger. Furthermore, it was evident that the Jinchuriki had an unjust advantage over his peers of similar age as he only had limited access to the Kyuubi's chakra. Although Itachi had some experience with Jinchuriki, the blonde boy's strength was much greater than what he expected him to possess. The boy's potential was deemed too terrifying by him. Itachi had no intention of urging his leader to take action against the boy at this moment. Itachi suggested that Konoha should be informed by him that Uzumaki Naruto was still too unstable and Akatsuki should wait for a better chance to capture the Kyuubi. The leader would have little doubt that the Bijou would soon evade capture. The boy's tendency to lose control was more likely to be a result of his efforts rather than his ability to gain control. However, the idea of Uzumaki becoming a flawless Jinchuriki like the one in Kumogakure would intimidate even someone with Itachi's level of expertise. Nonetheless, it would take some time for individuals to develop their skills. At the time, the boy was not prepared to take on any S-ranked competitor. Itachi had little faith in his ability to win against an A-rated player. The boy's age of 12 meant that Itachi had to deceive Akatsuki to give him the opportunity to grow up. If Itachi were to express his true opinion, Akatsuki would take action, while Konoha was presently powerless to oppose them. Provided with the necessary information, their leader would not undertake a risky undertaking. The man would either let the Bijou escape and take over or wait until the boy's power diminished before attacking. The information about Tsunagekyure's Jinchuriki was scarcely better. Itachi had put in a lot of effort to get near the containers building, making it impossible to see Sabaku no Gaara at the moment. He would have to fight his way through the surrounding guard to do so, which would alert all of Konoha's forces. "I would not have known if the audience had seen Uzumaki-san alter the seal," said one, but the process was uncertain. The Fuinjutsu martial art form was not under the expertise of Itachi, as their coach was an expert in that area. Akatsuki's plans were dealt another blow with the modification of the seal that held the Ichibi. Unless they can determine the cause of the boy's seal, the extraction method may not be effective and could lead to negative consequences. As the Sanbai was already out of action due to Yagura's death, Akatsuki had no desire to experience another delay by mistake killing the Ichibi. It was a surprise to the rogue Uchiha that he learned how Ichibi was defeated after being fully released. According to reports from Sasori and Orochimaru, Akatsuki was aware that Gaara was losing control of his bijou. By any reasonable reasoning, the boy was likely to have been able to force his seal to expend more chakra than the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Even though he lost, Itachi acknowledged that his expectations may not have been unreasonable and smiled. By maintaining his growth, Uzumaki-san could potentially thwart Akatsuki's plans. Itachi observed that the boy had grown physically and emotionally stronger since his last sighting 2 years ago, while the adults departed and the younger ones moved into the house. Strangely enough, the Aburame appeared to be hesitant about entering. Itachi was slightly taken aback when he saw the young boy exit. "There are those who claim that I am not as clear-cut as others." He scowled. The young Aburame was now part of the team that included Sasuke and a Kunoichi from an unremarkable clan, according to his knowledge. Itachi was aware that the Aburame had a peculiar feeling of loyalty. Itachi's happiness was a result of the fact that his younger brother had left behind some loyal teammates. Is it enough? Neither of them possessed the ability to confront Sasuke in an unsuitable position. Itachi contemplated the possibility of using a failsafe to guide Sasuke as his mentor, should the Jinchuriki continue to develop in the right direction. Despite his apparent lack of concern for others, Sasuke appeared to have a distinct perspective on the Jinchuriki. He showed appreciation to the Uzumaki, as evidenced by his identification of him as his adversary. After experiencing the effects of his illness, Itachi knew that he had to find someone capable of doing the job since his own time was limited to only a few years. A person in his position demanded a contingency plan. "I'm relieved to have more time than I did yesterday. It is too soon to make a decision on something as vital as this. By being cautious and using Mangekyo sparingly, I can last for at least 3 more years." Itachi sighed and declared, "I want Sasuke to succeed where our clan has failed. I owe him that to me. Until my final breath, I will keep fulfilling the promises made by my father, mother, and sister." Itachi remarked that he needed to maintain his faith. The signs did not suggest that Sasuke had fallen, but he was still alive. There was, however, hope. The cursed seal only serves to increase his susceptibility. To save the Uchiha clan, Sasuke had to take on the role of hero and seek redemption from them. Itachi had not yet taken action to put his safety measure up. Prior to that, Itachi had to make sure that Konoha kept their side of the bargain. He had to remind them that they had promised to protect Sasuke, particularly from Danzo. This encounter would undoubtedly be reported to the Hokage by this Anbu, and Itachi was confident that Danzo would learn about it in some manner. Furthermore, it would be clear to anyone who observed the destruction of Sasori's body that Itachi had been in the village. The Anbu guard incident highlighted the importance of protecting the Jinchuriki boy, in addition to the protection provided to his younger brother. Itachi may not be interested in capturing the boy at this time, but his colleagues were not very nice. Itachi was cognizant of the fact that Akatsuki was not closely monitored, as his spouse was the sole living entity that exemplified this approach. It would be a significant disappointment if the Uzumaki were to die before he could develop his true powers, as one of Akatsuki's impatience led to his death and Konoha failed to properly protect him. The boy must be kept safe and given time to develop his abilities. The more Itachi contemplated it, the more he believed it was plausible. Naruto expressed surprise at the fact that he would be the only real threat to the world's leader, and also had the strength to overcome Sasuke in a worst-case scenario. The inside of Shikamaru's house was entirely unexpected. While the Hyuga lived in a cold and quiet house, the Nara family's home was warm and cozy. Although not in turmoil, it was far more relaxed than the environment he had come across from the Hyuga. The Nara clan had their own homes on the vast compound, and there was little emphasis on tradition and formality. The Nara clan's holding of deer in the forest led Naruto to learn about their activities, resulting in it being the biggest compound within Konoha. Upon entering the living room, Yoshino and Tenten brought some drinks and made a statement, telling Choji to leave some of it for others. Shikamaru was expected to keep everything tidy and in order, as his mother's gaze would be haunting at the very sight of him if he did not do so. The poor boy left Naruto with such strong emotions of sympathy that he almost felt compassion for him. It's surprising how lethargic he can be. If she continues to push him around, it would be understandable for him to not want to do anything when he is out of sight. Shikamaru was fortunate that Chie had left, otherwise she would have caused chaos and disorder. Naruto was convinced that the unruly feline would not cross paths with Yoshino, and possibly more intimidating than a severely angry Hyuga AKO. I can't help but wonder who is responsible for the belief that women are the weaker sexual being, Naruto said, as he watched Yoshino drag Shikaku upstairs. We were poor guys and we never got any hope for anything good. It's business as usual, Ino declared, before halting her laughter. Shikamaru, your dad always spoils my mother every time he meets her. Ugh, no. It's understandable that your mother isn't as problematic as mine, sighed Shikamaru. Inoichi-san has a lot to be thankful for. Choji stated that his mother is a skilled cook, which seems to have resolved the issue. Yoshino was not afflicted by the same diet obsession that plagued the Yamanaka family. Kiba jokingly told Shikamaru, you can't help but feel guilty for not having an older sister, while Akamaru's took the empty chair spot. Naruto intended for his characters to express their happiness in having a family, but they did not fulfill his wish. The mood was ruined, and he felt peculiarly happy during his first genuine party. The Hyugas had parties but were not amusing. What's the plan? Games. Ino made her decision. Tenten asked, what game, with a frown. Ino asked, should we go with truth or dare, and he nodded in agreement. I'm not fond of this direction, why do you think? Naruto chimed in. Hinata expressed fear and argued that her preferences, as perceived by Ino-san, might make it more difficult to do something. Choji nodded in agreement. She was stopped by Ino, who glared at her. Swapping with her is futile and excessively aggravating, so avoid it. It's a good idea to just move on and forget about it. Alright, so who's the first one? Ino scowled foolishly. The six were astonished by the thought that Ino would single them out for their concealed torture. They had already recognized that she was the offspring of a torture and investigation officer. Orochimaru-sama, Narakazu said softly. We were on the verge of completing our training to remove the target, so why did you call on us? The delay in calling us back has hindered our plans. Getting rid of the bothersome rice field daimyo will take longer. Orochimaru perceived the annoyance on Nara's face, but was indifferent. I am committed to interacting with him in my own way. I have 4 more important things to attend to. What is more important than taking over a careless nation? Kenta expressed her opinion, what does this country need to do in order to succeed? We had to spend 3 weeks figuring out how to reach that paranoid moron, and nobody was even aware of our presence. The man is still frightened by Amor's actions from the previous time. Nana was on the verge of embarking on a bizarre murder spree as she had to wait for her time. At present, Orochimaru scowled in disbelief. I believed my instructions were precise, Nana. Dad, I hear you, replied a fair-haired teenager with yellow eyes. Her lack of mental capacity was evident to everyone, even though her black hair covered half of her face. I complied with all orders, and I didn't do anything wrong. Regrettably, that big monster ensured that. Honestly, I just wanted to have some good time. Laugh out loud comedy. It's time to apologize and forgive the unnecessary bloodshed, Imor said, referring to his preference for a small slaughter party. Orochimaru yelled out, "What's the point?" before his daughter could respond. Asana, you will be heading to the lab, getting ready for an assessment, and waiting patiently. Additionally, avoid messing with the assistants this time around, as I have run out of competent medical professionals. I'm not capable of killing anyone. Is it possible to torture someone and kill them? And is Kabuto present? Dad, yes please. The girl scowled. Kazu observed the girl exiting the room. Orochimaru approached him and asked, "Is she not a failure anymore?" "Her personality is unstable," Kazu replied. "Even though it's been 6 months since she left the tank you brought her, her body is already exhibiting signs of deterioration. It appears that the drugs are having an impact on her mental health. At this rate, she is becoming a liability." "No, not a word," Kenta snapped. "On the way home, I was almost killed by a crazy cat, and when I tried to relieve myself, my courage was questionable. Her close proximity almost resulted in her cutting off my penis. I'm anxious that her replacement will be finished soon. It's possible that you plan to conduct research on your tank-bred replicas, but ensure that they remain logical and resilient. If you can't be sure, it's best to avoid teaching them kenjutsu." Orochimaru rebuffed Kenta's tirade, thinking that the blade was too close to damaging her body. "It's far too early to make a judgment. It seems like a miscalculation was made by me, and it's quite disheartening. Once I understand the reason for Nana's failure, I will accelerate Yatsu emergence. My 8th daughter's growth was positively observed by Kabuto. Based on the data I obtained on my 7th, it is likely that Yatsu will perform better. I wonder where that smoky object is. Is he still keeping an eye on those tree-climbing individuals? The death of Kabuto is a sad one." Kenta remarked, "Wow, what's up? What the hell did that fucker kill himself?" Kenta asked, despite not being fond of the young Yakushi, but he had no issue with the boys. Courage. Despite being lower than Kenta and even higher than Kazu, it was still impressive enough. He was one of the few, unmarked, agents who, like them, were allowed to act freely by Orochimaru. Orochimaru's tone was calm as if he was talking about the weather when stating that the invasion was a failure, but his killing intent was enough to make it clear to all three that their leader was absolutely furious. Nana was almost in despair due to their knowledge of what Sannin, the snake, did when he became angry. "Our plans were flawless," Kazu muttered to himself. "Our troops should have easily overpowered Konoha, thanks to the support of Tsunagakure. Did their Jinchuriki make any mistakes? Furthermore, did Sasori also get his hands on the bijou if the invasion was unsuccessful? Kumogakure's Jinchuriki was somehow involved in the chaos. Despite your information, she was not sealed in." Kitamaro recounted seeing blue flames and feeling a terrifying chakra that even outstripped the Ichibi. It's highly unlikely that Sasori would have emerged victorious in that match, given the amount of energy he had invested in manipulating the submissive agents. Kenta muttered, "Oops. I'm unsure of Akatsuki's level of happiness, let alone his current situation. That's why I withdrew all 3 of you. We must relocate 2 of our well-known hideouts, and we need to do it quickly. It's unlikely that they will discover our defeat and come to know that I did not die. We are not yet in a position to confront them. Currently, we must retreat and carefully plan our next steps." Who were the 2 Dojutsu? Did Kabuto fail to gather the Byakugan, but I was able to defeat Sasuke-kun? We must gather that brat's eyes, Kazu sighed. The Sharingan allows you to confront Itachi with ease, but but the others are not as challenging to eliminate. It's a shame that Kabuto couldn't secure the Byakugan, even though he had given us an opportunity to do so. Orochimaru smirked and said, "Don't be disappointed, Kazu-kun. Not all cases resulted in a bad outcome. Due to my recent hit on my old friend, the village is expected to be in disarray soon. Tsunade is ineffective against the specific poison. I am yet to receive a reply from Sasuke-kun regarding his fate. Once we come to a consensus, I will count the sound 4 on that assignment." Lil Boner hasn't healed up yet, as Kenta observed. Unluckily, there is no answer. Kimimaro-kun is afflicted with an unidentified sickness. Kabuto was responsible for it, but without him. Well, I would like you to go to Mizu no Kuni, Kenta-kun, and collect any medical information that might be left behind in his old clan's deserted stronghold. Despite the Kagaya's lack of knowledge about their language, they may have been willing to do whatever it takes to heal Kimimaro. His master's jutsu left him disgusted, but he didn't oppose it. "Alright, I'll depart right after restocking my vehicles. I'd love to return home. It's been a few years since I last visited Waterloo." "Good morning, Kazu-kun. I'm sorry to hear that you and Imor have evacuated the 2 eastern hideouts." Kazu and Imor remarked. "Orochimaru-sama, yes please." Kenta's expression was one of dismissal. Like the other 2, he wasn't a loyal lapdog. "Che, I heard. Good to hear you're cutting another daughter open," he grunted. While Kenta had a strong dislike for Fushire Tensei, he found Orochimaru's treatment of his own replicas to be even more distasteful. Lab rats were living creatures that had been tested and infused with drugs to enhance their growth and performance. However, they never endured and all ended in a tragic manner. Kenta had worked with 3 of them, and Nana was the 7th child. She was undoubtedly the most outstanding performer among the 7. The 5th replica's death was among the few things that haunted his nightmares, despite seeing many horrific things. A dreadful death was unjustified for no living organism. Kenta's fondness for torture was not lost on him, as some things went too far. Fullying irrational aspirations of his own. His genius traits are matched only by his wild personality. Glad he realized I was too valuable to be used as another guinea pig. "Seriously, Kiba?" Tenten questioned, "Are you crazy? You're probably thinking, Choji, how can you kill Naruto?" Ino inquired. "You're thinking about killing him, right?" Kiba asked, glancing at Choji's distended expression. "He has a tendency to overlook defeat and move on." Shikamaru bowed as he spoke. At the outset of Ino's suggestion, he knew that this game would eventually become unmanageable. A large number of bothersome individuals in the room caused irreversible damage. His best friend was cornered like this, and he didn't sit quietly. "If you choose to play it in that manner, I'll increase the amount of money on the table. The winner of the duel will be given free ramen on the Inazuka clan's tab for a week. Hey, my friend. Would you mind sharing the little secret with your sister? She's not going to be pleased about that either. Your mother is not to be equated with yours, as a matter of fact. No. It's impossible for you to do it." Kiba's appearance was unappealing. In a different way, Karen-chan's perspective could be distinct. Hinata blushed at the thought, "And so it went," she said. "Despite Kiba's loss of color, you wouldn't. If she was informed that," he declared. "I was curious as to why I had to say, I have a big mouth." Choji's eyes were still wide open and Naruto began to drool at first. Choji rejected the idea of fighting Naruto and declared, "No, I won't." "Eh bien, me." Kiba questioned whether she was serious. "You know what he can do, right? This is going to explode." Naruto added, "Kiba, I don't mind if you dump me some ramen. It's unlikely that eating a small serving of ramen would result in your family being left without food or water. You and ramen, of course." A little ramen is never part of your diet. Your desire for such things has the potential to cause the entire freaking village to collapse. Don't be afraid, Kiba, I'll make sure to triumph over Naruto, Choji said. Kiba cried out, it's going to change everything, after realizing that his plans had taken a turn for the worse. Agreed, I give up. I abandon the challenge, but you come out on top in Choji. Excellent. Choji exclaimed with a smile. Oh. I'll send you the bill next week. Choji remarked, you didn't even have to pay Kiba for that duel with Naruto, and Shikamaru nodded in agreement. Shiki, you've already accepted Kiba's defeat by saying Aza, said Shika. Shikamaru inquired, what side are you on? Ino chuckled. Great. It's time for me to ask the right questions. Naruto, Tenten, and Shikamaru were all in awe. No one else had a chance to participate, and none of them wanted to be affected by Ino. Ino's expression was one of a smile, Naruto, and her gaze intensified upon hearing Naruto moaning. Do you dare to think, or, judicious? Why did you choose Ino? I'm feeling nauseous and uneasy about it. It is certain that any suggestion she makes will be too humiliating to others. I cannot rely on her to be reliable with that. Thus, the truth is left behind. It's not any better, knowing that it could only be one direction. Naruto's sigh was heard. The truth is the lesser of two evils, and I'll choose one. It's time for me to move on from this situation. You don't have the courage to do a dare, right? Ino expressed his delight. I am confident you do, that's why I wouldn't choose dare when you take the challenge, Naruto declared. Okay, then. Truth may be more believable, now you can't escape my questions, she said softly. He had been shunning her questions at the academy for years, but now he would have to answer one of her inquiries. What is the appropriate inquiry to make? I possess a large number of, but even with the majority, they were mostly focused on one thing. Naruto was the focus of Ino's gaze as he frowned and stared at him. No, she affirmed. How did you come out on top in defeating Gaara, without resorting to the same jutsu? How did you manage to defeat a Jinchuriki? Hinata exclaimed, Ino-san. Shikamaru concurred with her opinion that Ino should be stopped, regardless of the level of difficulty involved. Despite Akamaru's protestations, Kiba was still distracted by his failed dare. Girls, put an end to it, Naruto sighed. She has the authority to ask this, but it's not like I am prohibited from answering her. It was my decision to disclose this fact, even though I thought it might be a personal matter. He observed the curious stares on everyone else's faces. I must inform anyone that this is classified as confidential information before I respond. He looked at Ino and made a grimace. Ignoring any gossip can lead to the Hokage's attention, regardless of what you hear. Are you kidding me? Asked Ino, who seemed to be laughing but then quickly disregarded his expression with a frown. Are you correct? Is the answer, absolutely not. I'm taking everything seriously, Ino. The Hokage established a regulation that forbade the disclosure of any information, and those who did would be subject to the death penalty. It's important to avoid gossip, unless you want to die young. Naruto's warning was spot on. Tenten questioned, how can I be so direct with you? I have no knowledge of this, Naruto said, shivering. The law that the Hokage proposed does not apply to me is irrelevant. Ino nodded and sat on her seat, wondering if you still have questions about how she defeated Gaara. Kiba retorted, saying, Naruto, you don't need to. After the scene, Naruto nodded in agreement and proceeded to kiss Hinata. He tells me that I'm not strong in any way, but he doesn't, Kiba grumbled. After a brief moment of silence, Naruto began to say, I'm on my birthday. He then laughed as Ino fell back and broke down in frustration. She was eager to learn, but her lack of patience was unavoidable. Stay calm, Ino. I'm not being facetious with anyone. If you were curious, I'll disclose the complete information. I'll finish first, and I'm not going to interrupt myself, he said. Naruto's posture was that of a reclusive person. Is it a wise decision to make? Not likely, but considering they have already seen it, it is unlikely to be kept hidden for too long. The best course of action would be to inform them directly. Konoha was attacked by the Kyuubi when it was 13 years ago, which is 2 weeks from now. The day I was born and the day my parents died is also mentioned to me. My parents are unknown to me, and I have no idea how they perished. I think the demon was responsible for their deaths, just as it was for so many other people on that very day, Naruto said with a shiver. In any case, the Yondaime emerged victorious from the demon on that day. When Hinata saw Naruto for a second time, she frowned with sadness. Naruto claimed that he did not kill the Kyuubi, as evidenced by his statement. Shikamaru cut her off loudly and harshly, uttering, "Ino. What's going on?" The girl was taken aback by it. Until now, Shikamaru was never so serious, at least not outside of missions. Can you explain what was happening? What could be causing him to suffer such severe harm? Despite the fact that it didn't die, she opened her eyes and contemplated. It was previously mentioned that the Yondaime was responsible for the death of the Kyuubi, but this is not true. The Kyuubi's strength was too great for even mortals, so he couldn't do anything more than seal it away. Yondaime, who was incredibly strong, had to make a sacrifice of his own to get rid of the demon. No. Ino's complexion was pale. You can't make a big deal out of it. Yes, Inoue has the right to say that. He infected the Kyuubi into a newborn that had just been born nearby. I was the one who conceived that baby. That's why I was able to beat Sabaku no Gaara. Naruto declared that he was just a Jinchuriki, much like him. He is not similar to another person, as he has the Ichibi sealed within him, which is less powerful than the Kyuubi, but still adheres to the same principle. Regrettably, having the Kyuubi sealed up inside me is also responsible for people's animosity towards me. It is believed that I am the slayer, not the one who is holding it against me. What is the cause? How could they have achieved it? Mama told me that you were busy, but you didn't do anything about it, Ino said with a tearful ink. How can someone commit such an act against a baby? I am essentially being sacrificed as human sacrifice, serving as Jinchuriki for the village to hold back the demon's grip. I was never treated with respect by anyone. They do not view me as a human being. The monster I possess is seen by them, not me, and they fault me for the demon's suffering. It was only because someone had to take responsibility for what happened 13 years ago, and I was the last vestige of the Kyuubi. Choji swallowed his food. Naruto. I am not the person you want to be, but because of who I am, Kiba said snappily. He remarked that Naruto should not be held accountable for the demon's actions. Kiba. Naruto's barking provoked Inuzuka to stop, causing him to lose his cool. Ignore it, bro. He sighed with fatigue, acknowledging that they cannot force their opinion. This information is of great significance to many people, and you are aware of its sensitive nature. The possibility exists that some of them may have lost family to the demon, similar to how your clan suffered loss on that very day. Shikamaru remarked, you are mistaken, right? The Nara clan experienced a loss of members on that day. The Kyuubi's death caused their demise. Naruto, it's not because of you. The village's response was wrong, and I cannot accept their actions as they are a bunch of unintelligent and irritating idiots. She cried out in frustration, acknowledging that she had been made to understand Naruto's story by the end. Tenten tried to soothe her, but Ino chose to ignore her. Ino was aware that she had never actively targeted him, but she did not provide any assistance. She annoyed him only because she wanted to satisfy her own curiosity. I regret not having heard her speak. I should have asked my uncle, but I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Naruto said softly. Stimulate yourself. I acknowledge the reason for your action. You have never insulted, attacked, or done anything unsportsmanlike to me. I understand that you were a pain in the ass, but I had to conceal it, he said, prompting her to laugh. Shikamaru and Choji were amiable individuals, and as a result, they seemed to have some level of trust in me. I never held you accountable for how I was treated. You and your team are subject to the same rule, Tenten. Me, what's up? Tenten muttered. You, Lee, and Gai-sensei. He stated that despite being disliked by many, you treated him as if he were an ordinary person. Nevertheless, his smile transformed into a pitiful grimacing. I was aware of my identity, which is why I kept a distance from all of you. I thought you wouldn't comprehend. I was anxious that you would not comprehend. That's why I never shared it with any of you. It's my desire that I didn't cheat on you by lying to you. Naruto's content is not as significant as it appears, and Tenten was almost silent when she said this. Elevate your voice. It's inconceivable that you could create something like this when. And it shouldn't have been a significant factor in the process. She snapped backlash. Shikawa said that you are not the Kyuubi, just like Shikamaru did. Despite being an absent-minded idiot and occasionally fighting with Neji, you are not a devil. I'm confident that you outrank most people due to your unreserved care and support. Naruto, as Choji put it, is right, you're a good guy, she stated. Naruto acknowledged the lump in his throat and nodded, saying, thank you. Shikamaru expressed his disbelief in something he didn't comprehend immediately. It's hard to fathom your parents' true nature, considering that they were always recorded with their family histories. Beating me, Naruto sighed. To be honest, I can only recall my name. I looked for other Uzumaki in Konoha, but all I came across was a mention of an Uzumaki Mito, who was the wife of the Shodai Hokage, Senju Hashirama. Years before I was born, she passed away. It's possible that my parents were on a journey and had bad luck, being in the wrong place at the exact wrong time. I am clueless about it. To the extent of my knowledge, I am an orphan. Why did you decide to inform us? Choji inquired. When Naruto heard Choji's quiet voice, he smiled slightly. Nevertheless, the Akimichi were always known for their exceptional kindness and gentleness. After my experience in the Gaara conflict, I believed that it was only a matter of time before the incident became public knowledge. The cat had been removed from the bag after the finals, so I decided to let you know before anyone else hears. You're also indicating that you want to inform Lee, Tenten said. I'll let him know when we spar next time, Naruto said with a smile. It's not a significant concern, given that I have knowledge of him. The fact that Gai-sensei never seemed to harbor any negative feelings towards me like most adults does is particularly impressive. It could potentially result in some of their youthful craziness. Nodded with a small smile, Tenten nodded back and forth. It's likely that Shino-kun was aware of this, as he indirectly said it, Hinata told Naruto. Graphs demonstrate the occurrence of such figures. That man was always extremely intelligent. Although it's difficult to talk to someone, I'll make an effort to inform them when I see them again. In part, Naruto said, as he recounted. We had a mission that went wrong, and I utilized the Kyuubi's chakra to counteract the danger we encountered. Are you capable of doing it? Ino muttered. I'm going to kill Gaara, just so she knows, Naruto exclaimed softly. Sakura was somewhat frightened by the experience. Choji expressed her understanding by saying, so that's what she meant, reminiscing about her initial fear of Naruto. Sakura, she appeared to be quite frightened of you. Naruto responded with a cold response, I don't know that they knew about the Kyuubi, and concluded that she and Sasuke were already aware of them. I am unable to articulate that I care at all, either way. The mission's conclusion resulted in the closure of all events. After that, it's safe to say that we won't be friends. I departed from their team, and to be honest, it made my life more fulfilling. Despite Kiba's dog-like odor, Naruto nodded in agreement and smirked. Accompanied by an irate Akamaru's growling towards Naruto, Kiba exclaimed, "Hey! But wait, you!" Ino stated. "You've snubbed me today, have you got more truth?" Naruto quipped. Despite being relieved that they received it so well, he now wants to change the subject. Who is the next person to arrive at, much later in the evening or night? The mood had slightly bounced back, but it's safe to say that Ino, Choji, and Tenten were shocked from start to finish. Unlike Shikamaru, who had already predicted most of it, they were completely unprepared for the secret to Naruto's burden. Tenten had expressed her belief that the entire event was a bizarre Kekkai Genkai. Ino's challenges were tempered and subdued, which was a positive outcome. Hinata was able to use Tenten's selection for her truth by skillfully avoiding telling the truth about her fellow students. Tenten's attention was too focused to retract it. Her attempts to understand Ino's gossip were unsuccessful. Shikamaru saw it, but was too lazy to call her out. He made a conscious decision to never underestimate Hinata's intelligence, particularly in relation to Naruto and the subject of his brainpower. What makes women so terrifying, even those who are reserved? At that moment, he had expressed his dissatisfaction with himself. Naruto was left wondering if they would have made the right decision by telling them to leave the party after the conclusion. He was aware that words were not always the right way to act upon. He was surprised by how well they had handled the situation, but Ino became enraged upon learning of her mother's attempt to harm her against Naruto. The Yamanaka family's eyes indicated that war was imminent, as evidenced by the look in her eyes. Even if her uncle was killed by the Kyuubi, it was not an excuse for Yamanaka to have been persuaded by her mother to avoid the Jinchuriki. Inoichi had tempered his wife whenever he was around, but when Ino wasn't with him, she had to listen to her hear unintelligible rants that made no sense in her mind. Until now, Choji presented Naruto with his last bag of his chips. Naruto was unaware of the boy's whereabouts and accepted the offer, particularly based on the other's looks. Choji and his food, some people call me nuts when it comes to ramen. The others moved in different directions as Naruto strolled alongside a quiet, restless Hyuga. Naruto sighed and gazed at the nightly skies, feeling pleased. He had never attended a party like this before, and it was the only one of his age to do so. He had always avoided individuals of his own age group, which was a remnant of the orphanages where children would physically assault him. He was relieved that they were aware of his situation, and it was even more remarkable that their attitude towards him seemed to be somewhat lenient. He gazed at the moon from a higher position. The fullness of it had just returned within a few days. Naruto was left wondering why he felt so good about himself and became increasingly frustrated with the moon's presence. He had always been uncomfortable with seeing it, but recently his emotions have grown so much that he has avoided looking at it. When did I begin to despise the moon? They were the tyrants of shinobi existence. Despite the distance, she was content because she knew she had almost completed her sentence. Instead of the traditional 3-month sentence where she had to work to earn back her money for chasing another dango-stealing cat, the third changed her punishment to only following a set number of missions. Following the invasion's destruction, there was a significant amount of D-rank operations, such as clearing rubble and repairing buildings. Although it was tedious physical work, Mitarashi Anko regarded it as a training program to alleviate her anger. She was enraged because she had missed the chance to confront her former lover. Despite the desperate cries, she did not notice the grimace on her face as she approached the old man who owned the dango stand she visited every morning. She relied on it as her sole source of happiness these days. The man's emotional outburst caught her attention as she entered the room. What was the expression used to describe the act of someone daring to attack the only safe haven she had. Anko believed that she was a kind and patient individual, but there were certain boundaries to adhere to. No one made any threats towards her dango. She immediately began to investigate the crime scene after jumping in. There were scarcely any indications that the man had not yet cleaned his stand, as he had already closed it late the previous night. Her sense of smell was almost completely eliminated after spending the night fixing a portion of the sewer system that had been damaged. Despite the presence of a suspicious cabinet filled with garbage, she didn't detect any strangeness. The scent of a snake that smelled like this would be lethal to her if she sought its assistance. She couldn't find any indication until she saw a single fragment of blue fabric. Even though she was so desperate, the owner's violent cursing distracted him from his own crying and his cabbage traumas. Normally, the snake mistress would not be interested in blue fabric, but after being repeatedly reminded of her patience, Hokage had assigned her to babysit multiple times. Typically, it meant that he relinquished her responsibility of caring for the insidious little brat of a grandson. Respected grandson. With a murderous whisper, Anko released his weapon and instantly knocked out the poor stand owner. She snapped at the idea of, "I'm going to feed you to my snakes, one after the other, regardless of who you are next in line with. I can't help but despise children." A momentary glimpse of the furious Tokubetsu Jonin, who had fled towards the Sarutobi compound while shouting threats of all kinds, Chia laughed aloud, and turned around to face her friends. She smirked and admitted to loving when plans were feasible. "The task at hand is to keep Scarfy's two-leg off my tail for a while, but Naruto must now master the art of grounding the chibi with white eyes and two legs. This situation is becoming more and more escalating, and it's getting much worse." Konohamaru, the poor boy, woke up in the middle of the night when his front door slammed. "What the hell?" he murmured, his eyes wide open. He wished to turn around and continue sleeping, but his wife had already left the bed. "It's only Ino," he stated. "Sleep is the key to a good night." "My plan is to go downstairs and greet our daughter," said Yamanaka Yuriko, gesturing at her husband who was too lazy to do so. She also quickly fixed her brown hair. "It's important for all of us to welcome her home with open arms." "All right, I'll get up," said Inoichi, aware that he would have to pay for his own set of prostheses the next day. The reason why Ino opened the door so loudly became apparent when they entered the kitchen. The daughter's rage was not limited to typical anger, as she also displayed outrage. Yuriko attempted to soothe her daughter by asking, "Sweetie, what the hell is wrong with you?" Ino's occasional bitchy behavior aside, she was seldom truly enraged. The foolish person who woke the sleeping dragon was despised by Yuriko, regardless of what happened. "You're not alone," Ino muttered. Inoichi cautioned the young woman against conversing with her mother in that manner. Ino screamed, "Are you okay?" Inoichi expressed his shock and asked why his wife had been lying to him for so long. Upon seeing the surprise in her light brown eyes and the disapproval of her daughters twitching at the corner of their mouth, Inoichi realized that she didn't know either. "What are you trying to say?" he sighed. "It's time to put it behind me and move on," she said. "Although we don't know the exact reason for Yuriko's behavior towards Ino, we must work to prevent him from becoming too aggressive and lose control of the situation." "Is it necessary for me to clarify myself?" Ino cried out. She pointed at her mother's chest and remarked, "I heard you say tonight that I have been told not to do it for years. You were the one who had to hear about his untrustworthiness, criminal behavior, deceitfulness, and unpleasantness." Inoichi turned her back to his daughter from her father's house and realized exactly what he was doing. She had just returned from a gathering at the Nara estate with her former classmates. Naruto must have been there, and with his daughter's knowledge, she would have had ready questions after the boy Chunin exam stunt. "Why did you want me to hate Naruto?" Ino inquired, her voice dropping off a bit. The woman with light complexion spewed a sense of relief. "That's something you had to avoid," she said. Ino was taken aback by her parents when she revealed that Yondaime Hokage had sealed the Kyubi within him, which left them stunned. Inoichi asked, "Who told you that?" "That is not something that belongs to Ino," Naruto told them. "That's inconsequential." The crucial point is that I cannot rely on either of you, or at least on you. I am deeply disturbed to discover that you were attempting to pit me against my classmate. Why would you use me in that manner? Given that Naruto is innocent, why do you think he's a monster? Young man, Yuriko quipped. Is that an innocent question? Inoichi inquired after noticing the veins growing wider at his daughter's forehead and realizing that his wife had made a grave error. Give me a break. Ino shouted back. How much do you comprehend about Naruto? You are too consumed by his vehement loathing to acknowledge him as such. Do you believe that he is the Kyuubi? He recognizes the demon and experiences more pain than anyone else. The snapping was executed by Yuriko. Inoichi sighed, acknowledging the duration of the night and its impact on him. Despite being sealed in a baby, the object has never been inside us. How can we be saved from such ferocity? I advise you to stay away from it for your own safety, for there's no way of knowing when that demon will strike and destroy everyone. In hindrance, Ino exclaimed, I wish I had confidence in my mother, his voice stridged. Inoichi screamed. This was a novel development and definitely not advisable. Although his daughter bled and snapped like she did tonight, her frozen anger was even more intense. He tried to soothe his daughter by saying, "Sweetie." But he was already aware that it would not work. Don't do it, Daddy. You cautioned me that Naruto could be a danger, but I'm free to make my own choices, she stated with the same frigid voice. She ostensibly used me to achieve her own objectives. Despite your assertion that the Yamanaka clan places greater value on honesty, she persistently deceived others. They were not fabricated, Yuriko asserted, acknowledging that her husband's expression was flattering. The stories that are circulating through wow, stories, really. Ino quipped, maintaining a cold and emotionless demeanor. Yuriko-san, have you ever investigated the validity of those tales? Or did you simply fabricate them yourself, considering how much you were willing to share them? You simply needed someone to take the blame for the death of Aji-san. You are truly apathetic. Saying goodbye to you. Ino stomped away the kitchen door as she left, knocking it down. Inoichi witnessed his wife squirting and gazing at the spot where her daughter had recently arrived. Like her own mother, Ino-chan has a protective instinct that is hard to break away from. The knowledge that she was manipulated into helping a fellow student feel isolated, who received worse treatment than anyone else, must make her feel guilty. He realized that it was not just guilty, but the other way around. She has a negative view of being involved in the activities of another person. Yuriko-chan's mother is the one who caused her to become bitter, and if we don't remedy it, she will hate us all. We cannot rely on Ino-chan to make up for the failure. Yuriko-san, not Okaya-san's or Kachin, his wife said in an emotional tone, and she was hurt that her daughter didn't call her her mother like she does. My own daughter is being targeted by this male who now tries to turn her against me, she quipped. You're aware that this is not the case, right? Inoichi inquired. It's important to take a break and be at ease with yourself. We'll have a conversation with her tomorrow when we are all more rational, right? Yuriko replied in response, before she also exited the kitchen and led her daughter upstairs. She will listen to reason, even if I have to convince her otherwise. Inoichi's eyes shone as he realized where his wife was headed. According to the saying, a woman is not scorned in hell. Sweet Kami, I have two of these tenacious women in my home, Inoichi quipped before hurrying up the stairs. Even before they had dated, he still remembered Yuriko's outbursts of anger. He was fortunate to never have to deal with it, but this situation was spiraling out of control. I told you to stop spreading lies, but you don't believe it, Yuriko-chan retorted. The next morning, Naruto knocked on the door of Temuri Mei's temporary office in Konoha when she was 10 years old. Despite being out of town for an extended period due to the invasion and its aftermath, she was able to use the messenger bird's Konoha to assist her in doing some of her work while waiting to depart. Nevertheless, she was content to be able to depart and return to her own land. Due to the fact that no one recalled the civil war, their nation was not as stable as she imagined. She had an idea about how to revamp her office after spending some time in Konoha. Although Konoha was not as comfortable as Kirigakure, it was understandable given that it had not yet emerged from civil war. Upon hearing Naruto, one of the guards ordered her to get inside. Naruto said, "Good morning, Miss Mizukage," with a smile on his face. Mei nodded and said, "Good morning, Uzumaki-san," before telling him to sit down. Naruto inquired if you wanted to meet him, but he replied with a yes sign. Wait, I'm not sure. He added that he had heard much about the battle you fought against the enemy. It was revealed to me that you have 2 Kekii Genkai. I was curious. I have only recently heard about individuals having 1 bloodline limit, as it is already uncommon for them to possess 2 affinities in the chakra transformation. Mei scowled at the question, "What do you think? Is it possible to learn a Kekii Genkai instead of being born with one?" Naruto asked, although he did not anticipate her divulging her secrets. Without asking, he wouldn't have any knowledge. Mei sighed and stated, "Yes, I see. It is clear from that statement, therefore. You used 2 elements, so I assume you have 2 similarities, but no relation to them." What did Mei think of it? She thought he had both futon and katan affinities from birth, as a second affinity training was not suitable for him at his age. In a way, Naruto just shrugged off the situation, according to his statement. "I have a liking for futon and katan, but my proficiency in Raiton is still lacking. A great deal of training is still required for that one." With wide open eyes, Mei could hear him talk about learning a 3rd element, but his voice was so irritating that she couldn't help but be annoyed. Might he be let down by not being equipped with a 3rd element? Naruto inquired, "Do you think it is feasible for someone to acquire a Kekii Genkai with an affinity for 2 elements? I've never witnessed anyone in Konoha executing such an act, so I thought it might be worth asking," he stated with a smile. I acknowledge the statement. Mei disclosed that she was born with a love for both Suiton and Katan. The futon, also known as boil release, has been a part of my childhood routine and is still used to this day. The family had an inclination towards it. My family believed that I was somewhat of a unique character because they had trained me to have an affinity for the earth element. It took a lot of practice, but eventually I was able to master the Yoton Jutsus, which is the release of explosive force known as lava. Is it possible to learn them? Naruto chuckled. Yes, I can assure you that it is a very difficult process. Honestly, I couldn't learn the lava release until I had access to extensive data on it from other Yoton users. By following the example of others, I was able to balance out my 2 chakras and eventually use them in combat. My Yoton strength was not as it should have been, and it took years. Naruto's chin raised as he contemplated the implications of this. It is necessary for me to learn how to utilize both the wind and fire chakra simultaneously. I have never come across anyone using a nature Kekii Genkai powered by fire and wind, Mei stated. I have to say a prayer and an apology for any misgivings I may have made. I hear you, Naruto said, feeling a bit let down by the difficulty of the situation. Mei scowled, hinting at the likelihood of encountering someone from Sunagakure. The village has a significant number of people who play futon and occasionally katan, making it an ideal location to find someone who combined the 2. Naruto's smile was met with a positive response, sure. He expressed his gratitude to Miss Mizukage by getting up from his chair and lowering his head. Hold on tight, she said, as he left the chair. I wanted to meet you, so I suggested that Haku should find me, Mei quipped. While Naruto sat down, he scratched his head and smiled at his humiliation. My apologies, Miss Mizukage. I didn't remember, he confessed. Mei, Naruto-kun, you can call me anytime. No formalities required. Mei initiated the conversation with a different motive, and she recounted how the Hokage and Jiraiya had given her the scroll on Uzumaki history that Naruto had found in Gato's treasury while he was deployed to the Land of Waves. She stated that the intelligence division of Konoha was not able to crack the code, but they had determined that it was written by Yagura, the former Mizukage. With their new defensive alliance, Hiruzen aimed to persuade her village to break the code and uncover the information. The significance of translating this scroll was due to the fact that the truth behind Uzumaki fall was obscured, even though it was literally said so. Nevertheless, the Mizukage maintained that this scroll was entitled to the last known survivor of the Uzumaki clan. "I am requesting that you take the scroll with me when I go to Kirigakure tomorrow," Mei declared. "As of now, I lack the ability to read the scroll. Nevertheless, there may be some talent in my village that can be utilized to render it useful. It could be related to the history of my clan," Naruto said with a frown. "If our intelligence division is unable to handle that scroll, I don't see why it should be kept here." Naruto acknowledged that the relationship between Konoha and Kiri has not been flawless, but he believes there is no risk in trusting him with the scroll. "Although the scroll is currently in use, I have no reason to betray it, and it's also a positive indication of trust between our respective villages. Although there is little to lose, both of our villages could reap significant benefits from it. In addition," notes, "I'll say one thing." Naruto questioned whether Hokage-sama and Jiraiya would trust him or not. Although he did not want to disclose his belief in trusting this woman. She didn't feel particularly malevolent, at least not in the extreme. Although the impact would not be significant due to the high number of people involved, it does acknowledge that the woman's intentions were good. It would be a wise investment to take the risk since she was in charge of her village. Mei nodded and said, "Thank you. It's a positive development, as it could potentially uncover the truth about Yondaime Mizukage. There are suspicions that he was manipulated, perhaps we can uncover the truth through this scroll, and who may have been responsible." With a frown, Naruto replied with, "No problem," and was filled with new information. Mei laughed aloud. "You're almost in a better state now, it's just kind of sad," she quipped. Naruto expressed his anger by asking, "Why? Despite my age, I'm not that weak off. I didn't mean to judge you, but rather your talent. Mind you, I don't care." Mei sighed and acknowledged that it was not an appropriate topic for a 12-year-old to discuss, so she refrained from speaking publicly. Talking to him almost made her forget that Naruto was a child. She could only imagine how his struggles had made him grow up faster than other kids. Despite the trauma in Kirigakure, none of the children seemed as troubled as this boy. She smiled and said, "If we get some information from your scroll, I'll be happy to tell you." When the boy bowed down, she looked back at her. "At 11 years old, she's supposed to be here talking with the child," Jiraiya explained. Okay. Hiruzen spoke with a tiredness, confidently stating that he could finally quit after the treaty was signed. Hiruzen reacted by sighing, "Headache?" "Quite. It was a very hectic night, to be precise," he stated. "It is said that the Yamanaka clan leader's wife and daughter were in a dispute, but it took 6 of my umbu to stop the altercation." "What is the reason behind your question?" "I'm not sure." "Is there any certainty about what happened to Inoichi after he was knocked out, possibly by his own spouse? Has Tsunadeheim been reprimanded from the bar last night?" "Did umbu get injured?" asked Hiruzen, wearing a nod. Females are the source of inspiration for this statement. Jiraiya shook his head slightly. "It's the most stunning, but also the riskiest." Biwako was a memory that haunted Hiruzen, who could only accept it. His love for his late wife was unwavering, but he couldn't help but admit to experiencing unexpected outbursts. She demonstrated a remarkable level of patience and rationality. Sadly, Inoichi was left in the dark. Jiraiya's expression changed to something more serious when asked if she was prepared to spill the truth. "I believe it's still early, sensei. I realize it's premature, but it shouldn't be too soon. We need to take action now. It is my obligation to leave, Jiraiya, and I know that it won't be long. Hiruzen stated that if the person hears it, they can harbor hostility towards their successor without any objection. Kami acknowledges that I am entitled to it, as I was the one who made the errors, after all. Remember, we're talking about succession, Jiraiya muttered. The topic was something that frightened him, and he didn't like to talk about it. Following the exchange of Hiruzen's wishes with him. Who do you plan to nominate? I'm thinking you were. Hiruzen's expression was a faint chuckle. Tsunade turned down the offer and is not prepared to take over. Kakashi also made it clear that he has no intention of taking any action. Furthermore, he will be busy with Sasuke's duties. As for Kakashi, he'll be burdened with the weight of that brat. Both of them demonstrated that they have a lot to learn, as the kid did. Jiraiya stated that Sasuke's poor performance was too much for his own good and should have been punished with Chidori. Stay patient, it doesn't matter much. Hiruzen's resolve was evident despite his weakening state, as he stated that someone must take control of the situation. My lifespan is at its lowest in just a few weeks. It is my desire to leave Konoha with a sense of security before I depart, and you are the only one fitting for the position. Jiraiya's reluctance was evident as he waved his arms in frustration, saying, I didn't want the hat, do you? I admitted that I was the most unfit to take on that role, and I'm not. Do you think Danzo will take over from me? Alright, then. What happens to Konoha if he takes over? The consequences would be catastrophic, especially for Naruto. Jiraiya bled with sadness. This will be discussed in a later discussion. Yujito and her group must be accompanied to the border by me after the Mizukage leaves, and then we can meet up. Meanwhile, I want you to find someone else. It's just a good thing I have plans for next year, don't you? Was it when Itachi was in Konoha yesterday? What on earth? Jiraiya exclaimed softly. The Akatsuki member who died has been destroyed, and it appears that his ring was also stolen. Hiruzen gave a frown and admitted that it was probably Itachi's work. One of the Umbu members, Yamato, spotted him afterwards. Yamato? Jiraiya retorted. I assigned that person to be the guard for Naruto. I acknowledge that. Hiruzen gestured to Jiraiya to ease his nerves. Yamato shared with us that he had learned that they would be moving soon, as reported by him. Naruto was easily taken by Itachi, as he demonstrated. We are unaware of when they will begin to move in. 1 year, 2 years, who knows what. This invasion was actually orchestrated by them. It's a stroke of luck that their initial maneuver did not succeed. According to Hiruzen, it was reported by some that one of Iwagakure's Jinchuriki had disappeared just recently. It was probably a result of their efforts. Nevertheless, it indicates that Konoha must mobilize all its might. Hiruzen went back to his previous action, saying, moreover, I have an excuse to inform Naruto about this as well. It's possible that they already have an understanding and will use it to harm him. It's time to say goodbye to something. Jiraiya grimaced and remarked that Iwa's Jinchuriki had disappeared, but it was actually Akatsuki. Our previous knowledge suggests that it would take us at least 3 or 4 years to see if they start moving in earnest. Yes, of course. Before the Mizukage arrived, Hiruzen requested information about Uchiha Itachi. After feeling relieved, Yamato left Naruto and headed towards the mansion where Gaara and his siblings would temporarily reside. Naruto's presence in that area meant he was their watchful eye. Nonetheless, he was not bothered by the idea of staying outside the Hyuga compound for an extended period. The clan leader's brother and nephew were imprisoned, which created an unexpected strain on the familial ties between the main and branch houses. Naruto was not bothered by the idea of living elsewhere, especially when his team would be accompanying him there. Due to their temporary dwelling situated on the outskirts of Uchiha, it was impossible for anyone to contact him or Hinata. The abandoned mansion was dusty and abandoned after the Uchiha massacre, but Naruto managed to clean it up with the help of Hyuga Ako and his clones. Upon entering a second-floor room, Ako was slightly disturbed by the presence of markings and dark stains on the wooden floor where the previous owners' bodies had been found. Other than that room, they had made the house livable in a short amount of time. The space was spacious enough to accommodate Naruto, Hinata, Kiba and the Sand siblings. Ako also claimed one, saying that she had been granted by Hitomi custody of both. Naruto was in talks with the Mizukage, while Kurenai and Team 8 had relocated Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro to their new home. Simultaneously, Naruto's clones were conveying all his belongings to the mansion. With Jiraiya having given him a lot of new study material, Naruto would need to complete dozens of hours of it before he could correct his mistake on Gaara's seal. It was a stroke of luck that there was still time to go. The seal that Naruto had placed around Gaara's seal, which contained the Ichibi, was somewhat effective. By making the seal's chakra invisible, Gaara lost its ability to control her energy and had an enormous increase in Ichibi potential that would eventually lead to the creature being overwhelmed and breaking. Due to the creature's difficulty in generating chakra, the process may take several months, as predicted by Jiraiya. Before the demon can regain enough chakra to become dangerous again, Naruto would need to modify the seal within that time frame. The seal's pressure would eventually cause the chakra to enlarge and harm Gaara, as there was no way to prevent this from happening. The idea was to create a valve, which Gaara could use to direct the release of the Ichibi's chakra. The keyhole, which is referred to as such, would enable Gaara to control the Ichibi by releasing pressure through a controlled key. The ability for Gaara to choose when and how much of the Ichibi's chakra is released would be granted. Regardless of his preference, he was still a Jinchuriki. If he were to completely seal it away, his abilities would be severely compromised. Gaara's chakra being scrambled was only a reminder of his dependence on it, Naruto said. Sabaku no Gaara was vulnerable and kept a close watch, knowing that Konoha residents would be willing to exploit this vulnerability. The order given by Baki to Temari and Kankuro was crucial in preventing any actions that could further undermine Tsunagekyu's political status. It was for this reason that Jiraiya had assigned Naruto to defend his fellow Jinchuriki, with assistance from Hinata and Kiba, and sometimes Kurenai during her absence due to missions. Although Gaara was vulnerable for a while, it was likely that some individuals in Konoha would express their animosity and anger towards the three children of the previous Kazekage. Despite the fact that many lives were lost in the invasion, people still held a grudge against the three-headed general from Tsunagakure. Although Naruto was disliked for his birthday, he gained notoriety for carrying the Kyuubi. Gaara would be regarded in a similar manner by them. Naruto's expectation was that this would happen. Naruto speculated that the outcome would be unpredictable once Jisan stepped aside. His condition means that it will only take a few months before he can name his successor. If the successor were not as exceptional as Yondaime, Jiraiya informed Naruto that there would be a period of chaos. After the challenges, Naruto left the Mizukage's office and walked back to the Uchiha district, feeling pleased. A girl who was younger and less content was situated some distance away. More tests? Karen questioned. Shizune-san, do you think it's necessary? Asked Karen-chan, a young woman with golden freckles. Despite her pout, Karen confirmed that she had received her approval yesterday. I did, but Tsunade-sama decided to run additional tests since some of the tests in the previous examination yielded unexpected outcomes. Is it not bad? Tsunade muttered, acknowledging that the situation was not negative. Her attention was on preparing a machine that she utilized for analysis. Karen was apprehensive about the appearance, but still found it alarming. All I had to do was have something validated, that's all I needed. What is the appropriate response to your DNA question? Karen's expression changed to a frown, and she knew that the legendary Senju would not disclose it to her, or else she would have done so. Waiting was the only option as the two medical professionals carried out their research. The process was not tense, as the machine only collected blood samples and examined her chakra. At last, I thought, oh, can you tell me what's going on? She continued. Shizun smiled, you must have thought that you were correct, Tsunade-sama, and leaned over her master's shoulder as the machine displayed the results. I was unable to fathom the possibility of this happening, but I can't help but wonder what might have occurred. Is there anyone available to provide me with information? Karen questioned. Karen, do you have any background information about you? Tsunade looked at her. The sound of a sigh was heard by Karen. Last week I shared with you that my family's passing was caused by the destruction of my village, and I grew up in an orphanage. I was sold to Kusa by the orphanage after a John-in visited the facility and observed my aptitude for sensing. Karen, what if you didn't know your family name at the orphanage? Carissa, I believe she knew it. Tsunade smiled and asked, what's going on? Although, you do have some living relatives. As Karen's eyes appeared to bulge out, Shizun burst into laughter and Taunton responded with a happy giggle, while Tsunade snorted in rapturous fashion. She pointed at Karen's chest and said, if you ever call me grandma or granny, I will kill you, but do not let that be an excuse. The brat's actions are already a source of distress for the other person. Tsunade-sama, what the hell is wrong with you? He quipped, while Shizun corrected him by saying, don't make fun of that poor girl. Karina noted that the data reveals one unambiguous conclusion. As Tsunade was rummaging through a nearby cabinet, she observed that two individuals were present. Shizun sighed, where did you hide my sake this time, and proceeded to properly celebrate. Tsunade-sama. Karen is still underage and not allowed to drink alcohol. Are we talking about her being a genitals? Tsunade asked. Is it not true that individuals who are old enough to drink alcohol before dying do so? Shizun said, referring to the fact that many people in secret villages were alcoholics. Sakura was still in the opening of the front door when Karen, her full name being revealed. What's taking place here, Ino Pig? She quipped. The lack of sleep caused her to be in a bad mood. Her father had just woken her up early after being drunk and fell down the stairs, leaving her with no idea what she was doing. I need your help in sorting things out, so I'll be here for you, Ino said. With a hint of suspicion, Sakura gazed at her closest companion and most formidable foe. You look like you've gone to hell? Ino asked. I had a slight disagreement with my mom, but the tone of her statement caught Sakura off guard. What is the reason behind Yuriko-san's friendly demeanor? I was told by Ino that she had been dishonest with her, she said. What did she inquire about? Sakura scowled. I'm not interested in seeing her at the moment, right? She blurted out. A mother should never be deceiving her daughter like that. I am not a tool for her own use. Sakura exclaimed, gesturing with composure and handing over the keys. You can always stay in our guest room without any cost, you can count on it being free. Have you thought about going upstairs to sleep for a few hours? My dad is unconscious, so it's only a matter of time before he wakes up and becomes aware of his illness. You might assume that he would learn to puke himself inside out every day, but it's not true. You appear to require sleep, at least when you go to bed. Ino chose to let the playful insult go as her friend had suggested. Thanks, Sakura. The weary blonde shook her head in despair, saying she was sorry for being angry. It's fine, Sakura stated to her. I'm accustomed to your unpleasant temper, she quipped. I am accountable for you, too. Akamaru screamed while standing in front of Kiba. I know this isn't exciting, Kiba sighed. Kurenai, Hinata, Akamaru, and Kiba's escort, who were Gaara and his siblings, was responsible for leading them from the prison to the mansion in Uchiha district. Kiba would rather consider it as annoying than calling it eventful, though. It was bothersome because of all the gazes that went in Gaara's direction. The Jinchuriki disregarded them, as if they were familiar with such behavior, but Kiba felt somewhat uneasy about the animosity. He hoped that instead of giving hateful expressions, one of the villagers would be foolish enough to attack, but Kurenai's presence prevented him from doing so. Despite being a new jonin and relatively young, his sensei's reputation was well known throughout the village. She was the most accomplished genjutsu instructor at Konoha, in all of his forms. Kiba became quickly disinterested after entering the estate. Despite his impassiveness, Gaara only replied to one of Kiba's questions by saying that he was waiting for Naruto. What was the reason behind Kiba's lack of knowledge? Despite Naruto's assurance that Gaara was trustworthy, Kiba still had reservations. Neither of the other two Sand siblings were much better. While Kankuro was almost hysterical due to the maintenance of his puppets, Hinata had taken Temari upstairs and shown her fellow kunoichi. Kurenai had returned their weapons to them, as neither the Hokage nor Jiraiya anticipated any significant threat from the two. After his older brother cried out with happiness upon seeing his babies, Gaara seemed annoyed. Kiba's face still had some muscle twitching when he thought about that scene. Kiba suspected that Gaara had shifted some of his teeth, leading him to grimace in frustration. Kiba expressed her disappointment, saying, "It's strange that Naruto decided to send a team of clones to purge this place. Uzumaki-san seems to be overly aggressive, as Gaara pointed out." Kiba nodded in agreement and remarked, "You can talk," with another expression. "I'm not going to lie, you can. Trust me." After sneezing loudly, the Nara greeted him with a nose-rubber response, "Yeah, yeah." The situation created a significant disturbance in the police department, with someone being required to act or say something that was considered extremely bothersome. "It's fortunate that I wasn't present during the incident." Naruto's Jonin sensei was surprised when he said, "Sorry for being late, Sensei." "Still worn down, Kurenai sensei?" The woman blinked and then proceeded to express a particularly sizable yawn. "I'm not able to sleep," she whispered. With the exception of the numerous missions that the shinobi had to undertake, Kurenai's evening and night activities were overextended. It was no longer common for her and Asuma to have some time off at the same time. Naruto suggested getting some sleep and heading home, feeling a bit paralyzed by the tired look on her face, thinking she may have been sick. He observed that she walked with some discomfort. The endurance of Jonin had its ups and downs, as indicated by the apparent negative effects. It's possible that I could agree with this. Naruto, the Chunin who is assigned to lead this mission, was beaming with joy as Kurenai expressed his satisfaction. "I'll be around to assist as much as possible, but I must also take on missions while you and the trio guard the way from Sunagakure. I'm confident you'll impress me with your achievements." Naruto said, "Yeah, I'll give it my best shot. We'll be able to handle that. I can't imagine anyone would be foolish enough to attack Gaara, especially after the show we exhibited during the exams. It's possible that we could be lucky. Nevertheless, I made sure to instruct Hinata to prevent you and Kiba from engaging in any reckless behavior. I'm not as bad as you think, but I don't care." The Hellfire Seal? Did Naruto really want to release the Kyuubi? Kurenai asked. She repeated, "I agree with Jiraiya-sama, from where I am." Yeah, has been trailed by another Umbu person, but the latter declined to explain why Yamato wasn't present. "I think he's on a mission. Unfortunately, Yamato was more appealing to me." Kurenai shrugged, not knowing the answer to the man's absence, and bid farewell to her team and the Sand siblings, a gesture that was only returned by Temari. She observed that Gaara was sleeping with his eyes open, and Kankuro was still polishing his puppets. Naruto's reaction to seeing the puppeteer was a small frown, but he maintained his silence. "What's the plan?" Ako brought her last clone with her to retrieve some supplies. Temari's expression, "Ako, do you agree?" was met with a frown. "Hyuga Ako, Hindi. Haruki and I were tended to by her. I reside in the Hyuga compound, subsequently." Hinata stated that the mother requested her to remain with us. Missions have forced Kosan to leave the village, but he is still missing. PFF, it seems like he can better protect you than we do, Kiba boasted. Naruto's expression was to side. When you have two Jinchuriki in one place, it is clear that something will happen. I'm going to examine the seals my clones had placed earlier. Realizes? Temari muttered, gazing at Hinata, who appeared to be the most inquisitive person on her mind. He must be paranoid. Kiba sighed and replied with a deep voice, replying, his name is Jinchuriki, without prompting Hinata to ask. As Kiba-kun has pointed out, Naruto's security measures have always been somewhat cautious. Gaara commented on Konoha's superiority over Tsunegakure, then stood up and went outside to see Naruto. I'm not sure what to say, The clone was depleted before the left corner inscription could be completed, as I had previously stated. If I don't rewrite this, it will be the weakest link among the 8. Naruto said in a murmurative tone. I'm looking for a way to give those clones some resistance, or I'll risk damaging the barrier. Are we in trouble? Gaara's dry voice made it clear. Naruto's lips muttered, maybe, in response. He took the seal out and drew a new one in its place. Gaara remained silent and looked on in curious interest. After seeing how we fared in the finals, I am confident that more people would rather see us pass away. I would prefer not to witness any more occurrences. The only way to do this would be to increase tensions. Is it true that your village has the same level of animosity towards you as the people of Suna did towards me? Gaara asked, curious about the history of his fellow Jinchuriki. Naruto's sigh was heard as he put his arm around his chest. He activated the barrier to prevent anyone from entering the grounds around the mansion without his knowledge. I'm not sure how Suna is, but I can guarantee that Konoha would be happy if I were to depart, he said with sadness. Some people see me as a weapon, while others view me more as Uzumaki Naruto, but for most, I'm only the dark side of the coin. It's just like the situation at Suna, right? They were mostly scared, she said. Devastated by my actions and the potential consequences that I may face. It's comprehensible that the Ichibi had some degree of influence on you. Gaara added, not only that, but it was not just moi. I felt enraged. My disdain for the world and my desire for it to feel the same pain as I did was ingrained in me. My anger was not solely caused by Shikaku's actions. Naruto observed the hesitation beneath the boy's stoic expression as he looked at his fellow Jinchuriki. He pointed to a section of the garden that was quite run down. Although there wasn't much going on, they were able to sit down and enjoy some privacy. Naruto gave the advice to the Umbu to stay away, before he began speaking once again. I understand your reasoning, but I suspect Suna may have treated you differently as well, given that you were the Kazekage's offspring? What's the significance of that expression? Naruto scowled. Is it true that children have their own bijou seal? I am dissimilar to others. Gaara's father and his researchers decided to try a new approach after their previous attempt failed, but they chose not to comment. My father had me undergo DNA testing when my mother was expecting a child, and I was considered compatible with my father's magnet release. Once they came to the realization, they sealed Shikaku within me. Naruto's eyes were opened as he watched. Before I was born, yes, before you were Gaara continued. There were some issues that resulted in this. My mother was born prematurely, and my father never seemed to mind as he didn't survive. Naruto responded by smirking and labeling me as monsters, the damn hypocrites. The Kyuubi remarked that humans are more dangerous than demons, but what makes such actions harmful to children and young adults? How could a father kill his own wife without consequences? Afterward, can you ask me a question? Alright, I'll let you know. You are my closest companion. Naruto's eyes were widened as Gaara gazed, blinking. Family? Naruto sighed, replying with a silent, yeah. The reality is that there are only a few of us. Our name is Jinchuriki. The truth is that we are not truly human, and neither are we the bijou we inscribe. I am not sure if you are part of my family, but we are in each other's shoes. As per her own observation, Gaara smiled and said, "That's correct. I'm curious, if you truly despise humans as much as I do, why did you choose to save them? You might as well save some, right?" Naruto quipped. "I may not be concerned about the majority, but there are a few who are special enough to give my life. The people I know, like Hinata or Kiba, are the ones who make life worth living." "Those you want to safeguard," Gaara nodded in agreement. "Yeah. Even among my friends, there were some who initially felt uneasy about me. Gradually, they changed and began to accept me for who I am. My intention is to lead them. My goal is to create a world where children don't have to endure the same fate as us." Naruto pondered the world's direction, considering that it was more important to start from the bottom and change everything. "I mean, other villages wouldn't welcome me with open arms. Even if they did, Konoha would still declare war on them as I am the village's weapon. We will have the choice to accept or reject it. Irrespective of their wish for us or not. A village is not a complete disgrace, doesn't it?" Naruto inquired. "I have a friend in Konoha, and I have 2 friends in Tsunagakuro and Temari. Are you unsure if you have any additional family members or friends?" Gaara responded by saying, "I have an uncle, but I am uncertain about my family connections. It's possible that my family members would prefer not to be in contact with me if I had more relatives." Temari was apathetic. She held on to the belief that there was good in you, despite everything. Looking up at the gray clouds in the sky, Gaara revealed that she had killed her uncle. "After his council deemed my experiment as unsuccessful, my father made the decision to have me killed. His initial target was a covert assassin who went after me. I was completely unaware until my uncle's mask fell off and the explosive tags went off. My sand provided me with protection, at least from the point of physical discomfort." Naruto expressed his dismay by saying, "That's awful," while apologizing to the Jinchuriki for forcing him to do it. "After that day, I made a vow to never put my trust in anyone again except for myself and apologized. Although my uncle taught me and had a strong emotional connection with me, he ultimately agreed to carry out the mission even though his father had previously disregarded his wishes. Your father's thought process was reminiscent of your own, and it left you wondering how they could have come up with such an idea. I made a promise to kill my father one day as retribution for killing my mother and gratitude for being forced by him to take the life of the person who showed no regard for me." Gaara sighed in disbelief after hearing Shikaku's repeated complaints. "You succeeded in defeating me and silenced Shikaku, but the man I loathed was slain by an unknown person. I am uncertain if I should express gratitude to Orochimaru for killing my father or grieve about him taking away my opportunity to kill him. Despite his efforts, revenge has not resolved any issues." According to Naruto, it's possible that getting a bit of revenge would have been good, even if Shikaku wasn't messing around. Naruto's expression was, "Yeah, it does," as he stated with a smirk. "It is incredibly simple to become consumed with such animosity. My first opponent in the finals, Hyuga Neji, was so enamored with his hatred that he couldn't even see the dark side of his gifted eyes. I'm not willing to be seen as blind. Your teammate was on the brink of being killed by him." He responded with a, "Yes, and I would have killed him for that." Gaara inquired about the reason behind Naruto's decision not to kill someone he wanted, questioning whether there were many people who could have prevented it. Gaara's aim was to eliminate all his targets, resulting in their deaths. There were a few exceptions, such as his father and Naruto, who were too strong for him to overcome. Hinata, spelt. She implored me to prevent Neji from taking her own life. It dawned on her that Neji was consumed by a series of events that almost made her hate Hinata, who belonged to the primary house of their clan. She asked you, so why didn't you answer? Gaara questioned. Yes, of course. Nevertheless, I am convinced that she is precisely where she should be. She stated that individuals can change and overcome their hatred towards one another. Niji was treated as if she were a victim, according to Hinata. Yet you caused him significant harm due to your actions. Hinata's request was so much better for me that I could have torn him apart, Naruto said with a grimace. Nevertheless, he had to make a payment for both his past conduct and his future attainment of freedom. I got rid of the seal that permitted the main house members to control branch house individuals like him. Had I done it without causing any disruption, the elders of the Hyuga clan would have recognized that I could weaken their power. I had no intention of starting that war. Nevertheless, Hyuga Niji's seal was removed by you, and now you hope he will abandon his path, Gaara stated. Hinata appeared to believe that was the view he held. I am eager to see how it progresses, if nothing else. I am curious to see if Niji can alter things. If there is hope for someone who has fallen, then it could be a good thing for all of us. Jiraiya-sensei is the most infamous pervert in existence, but he does teach some valuable subjects. He expressed to me that he thinks the world is governed by a significant chain of hatred, where every act of hate will lead to additional acts of violence. He was clueless about breaking that cycle, but Hinata taught me how to do it. You'd think that changing a person's world would put an end to the cycle. Naruto shrugged off doubters, admitting, it's a better alternative than tolerating nothing and allowing the chaos to persist. To effect a transformation, we must have immense strength, otherwise it won't be possible to get people off their hatreds. Niji's clan operations are the cause of his pain, as those with power profit the most from the current system and would never change it. There exists only one clan. I believe that hatred is deeply ingrained in our traditions, systems, and history. Gaara nodded in agreement, remarking that Iwagakure still holds contempt for Konoha over the Third Ninja War. To get past those resentments, anyone can change their minds. Naruto quipped. Our Jinchuriki are the most powerful group in India, surpassing others. By taking action, we can bring about a brighter future for the world. I believed you were a realist. Gaara's reply was one of complete disbelief and bluntness. Sorry, I didn't deliver, Naruto said with a grumble. I have no intention of just pursuing ideals. I aim to make them tangible. I'm accustomed to taking the lives of those who oppose me, can you believe it? I am aware that violence is not the solution to all of my problems. License me, Naruto, he said with a chuckle. I believe that the inequality between and within villages should be the first priority if I aim to alter problems. I am driven by the desire to become a Hokage and contribute to the betterment of our planet. Prior to that, individuals like ourselves must have their own powers. If we continue to be submissive to our bijou, then we will never be able to lead others. Gaara nodded as she put her fingers to the ground. If Naruto wants to become a Hokage, maybe I should explore the possibility of becoming Kazekage as well. If we could work together, we would have more power, perhaps enough to bring about the change that he longs for. It would be beneficial to try if it prevents the creation of humans. Naruto inquired, where are the others, upon his return to the drawing board. Gaara was still in the garden, reflecting on Naruto's words to him. The two Jinchuriki were in agreement that their world needed to be altered, and they believed that by controlling the bijou's powers, they could achieve it. The question of how to proceed was still unresolved. Kankuro narrated the story of Temari and Hyuga girl and dog boy going out without any hesitation. He was still enchanted by his puppets, no doubt about it. They'll be back home in just under 5 years. They claimed that it was at least that. Despite the excitement of girls and shopping, it seems like Dog Boy is already regretting his decision to go along with them. Naruto's expression was one of dismissal. He found contentment with the seals around the perimeter and went to his room to organize all the scrolls he brought back from his cottage. He would then proceed to happen after he had put the proper seals in his room. Naruto was apprehensive of someone entering the perimeter, but he couldn't resist hearing some intense, yet still familiar, screams before reacting. Naruto observed the Umbu guard restraining a deeply troubled Karen as they fled outside. Naruto's initial reaction was one of, "Calm yourselves, Umbu-san," despite his lack of fondness for the man. He was able to see that their assailant was not even remotely dangerous to them, and he had no hesitation in seeing that the Umbu could see. Karen is trustworthy, she's dependable. The Umbu glared at him, shrugged, and went back to the shadows. She said, "What the heck was that?" She said, "I'm impressed. Do you think I am an intruder?" Karen scowled. Naruto found it amusing that she was laughing at her. "It depends on what you want to say." Despite his absence, Kiba is not present. Karen appeared to have trouble settling into her glasses, as evidenced by her clever use of the hand that adjusted her spectacles. "Why did you think I came here for Kiba-kun? Is it necessary for you to ask?" Naruto expressed his dissatisfaction with the statement. "Kurenai-sensei, why are you here so soon? I expected the entire processing process to take another week." The insecure look in her eyes caused him to frown when she looked at him. She said, "Well," she added, "I have a message for you, which is the one I want to convey." In the shopping center, Temari, Hinata, and Kabi, who had Akamaru on his head, were present. While not everyone was pleased to see the Suna Kunoichi, there were no instances where people tried to overcharge her whenever she bought something. As a result, their shopping experience was relatively smooth. Temari expressed her desire to replace or repair her red sash, which was made possible by the Hokage's generosity. Hinata became her unexpected friend as shopping was a rare pastime for her. Rather than doing anything minor, the Hyuga main family would order a branch member to do it for them. As a result, the young heiress had limited opportunities to shop for clothes. Kiba, being the alpha male, reluctantly accepted his destiny and chased after the two happy Kunoichi. Akamaru resorted to whining to convey his boredom. A somewhat peculiar scene brought an end to the boredom. A snake strangled a boy with hat who Kiba and Hinata knew was Konohamaru, but it wasn't long before they discovered him. The boy was not being strangled by the snake. Despite this, the creature had an equally perplexing expression on his face. A female Joninker, who was terrified, appeared in front of the boy and the snake. The individual who was made to look angry Byakugan, and then received a lengthy lecture on why she should not use snakes against children. "That jerk, you shouldn't be guilty," Anko quipped. "It doesn't matter," Ako replied vehemently. "It is not permissible to use summons as a tool to harm children. Shut down Ako-chan and start listening. The lesson Irakakuen has learned is that one must always keep a boundary in mind before accepting Naruto-kumen. This woman went too far." Anko exclaimed with a knowing smirk. Despite Ako's embarrassed expression and the question of Irakakuen, her confident countenance remained unaltered. As the scene unfolded in front of them, the three genin and the ninken asked, "Yes, what's that for you?" "It would be great if we could finish our shopping earlier," Kiba suggested. "I guess it would be a good idea," Temari stated. "We can always find a new sash tomorrow," Hinata said. Temari questioned, "You already had two," and replied with a blank stare, saying that negotiation was off the table regarding the matter. While walking through the deserted Uchiha district, Temari was taken aback by the lack of people on their way. Itachi, the elder Sasuke's sibling, was responsible for killing the entire clan, Kiba recounted. She desired to ask more, but they had finally arrived at their new home. The sight that caught their eye caused her to lose interest and not ask any more questions. The sight caused Temari to squirm, Kiba to grimace, and Hinata had to resist an unexpected urge to kill. The girl, Hyuga Hinata, who was known for her kindness and patience, had to overcome the limit of what she could tolerate from others. Hinata activated her Byakugan in response to seeing Karen embrace Naruto-kun, asking what you were doing. Which game do you think is a better option, cats or Naniko? All 5 cats had settled into their new home in the unoccupied Uchiha district, and 3 of them were quite worn out. According to Suto, it was a pitiful decision. What is the reason for their presence? Shiro panted. Those 3 individuals persisted in chasing us. While Tora made a cheeky comment about you 2 being slow, it's true that those dogs aren't very flexible. However, their speed is impressive. Ribbon 4-leg, you were doing great, Chia muttered bluntly. Suto replied with a smile, yes, Chia-sama, that's correct. The speed of you 3 is pathetically slow. Is it possible that they require Naniko training? Shiro replied with a grunt, yes, I won't take it but you should. Is it possible to procure a meal before eating? It's the current day. Suto stated that it would be interesting to see if the training had yielded positive results. Torment is the only acceptable form of training, not preparation. Chia, the short-tailed savage, assured that they would not be stopped once they finished. Chia-sama, Shiro sighed and asked, what's the plan? There's this dog who should be rewarded, **** you seem to be having a good time, bro. The fact that all 4 of them are being dragged back to their owners is priceless, and you never imagined it would happen this way. Isn't it true that we got a white-haired puppy? Moreover, Tora is well known for her own abilities, and Shiro was capable of making it seem like the dog was chasing him and Sakana into the butcher shop. They won't be in trouble. He's intelligent, so I'll give him that, Chia admitted. It is unlikely that the owners of this house will be pleased despite the chaos caused by the recent fire. The plan to frame Akamaru and evade punishment for the meat was foiled by us. They need more training, don't look at me now, Suto quipped. Why did you not tell me? Chia quipped. Isn't it true that they have learned this now? The toughest lessons tend to leave the biggest impression. Itachi-sama used to say, no, I don't know. You are evil. It is more frequent for Sasuke-san to say it, Suto chuckled. Chia sighed and declared, let us once again teach them how to manipulate their chakras when they flee from their masters again. If I don't return, Akoheim will be livid. Don't let your dirty habit of urinating on things get the best of you, Suto said. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.